Good evening. Welcome to the June 16th, 2025 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. This time I will call this meeting to order, and I'll ask that you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Always great to see a big crowd at the City Council meeting. We appreciate you all being here. Again, as I mentioned before we started, if you're here to speak in one of our public hearing items, you do need to be signed up to do that, so make sure that you get signed up before we get to those items on the agenda. Councilors, we will jump right into the consent docket. Questions, comments, action on the consent docket.
Please pull item I.
Item I will pull from the consent docket.
I move approval of the consent docket, sans item I.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent minus item I. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, everything except item I in the consent docket is approved. Councilor Harden?
So is Mr. Henderson here? So I sent you some written questions, which you answered. Thank you for doing that. So regarding the golf course, I've had several of your customers say, we need better maintenance out there. Your responses, I can understand, were weather-related. Yes, I know we had a crappy spring, and it's very hard to maintain. Some of the responses, though, when I talk back to your customers, I say, yeah, but this has been going on more than just this spring. So maybe we need a better way to have some communication between your customers and your management. I don't know what that is. But one thing did stick out to me. You, when you were here, I believe it was in August, you'd said you're getting ready to buy some golf carts. And you're still getting ready to buy some golf carts.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's get that rolling. If you said you're going to do it, be sure you do it. And I would really suggest we try to find some way with Parks and Rec to get some feedback from users before the day that your contract is up for renewal. That would make it a lot easier to handle the situation.
Typically, that's when most of the complaints come in, is when the contract's about to come up.
And that's exactly what happened. Is
I'm available 24 hours a day via email through the website, through our staff.
Okay.
Our director of maintenance is on the property every day. He literally lives on the property every single day. Our maintenance crew typically pulls out of there about 3 p.m., so he's not there in the afternoons as well. But we are fully available to speak to anybody at any time. We'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay.
Our cart situation, we operate off of a 4-year cart lease, which we typically roll the carts every 3. The batteries on a golf cart fleet that aren't lithium ion typically last about 2 years, so we have to re-battery every golf cart. I have a maintenance agreement with Club Cart of America that they come out and they actually service the golf cars for us. So whenever a golf cart does break down or becomes unusable, they come out on Monday, it's fixed by Thursday. And that's part of my maintenance agreement with that company.
Okay.
And so it's taken care of on a timely basis. We're busy. We have got those carts, especially in the spring. Usually when these contract renewals come around, we're coming out of the spring, which is when the grass has been dormant. It hasn't quite started growing yet. And then April was just historic rains. And there were some legitimate complaints. My superintendent in March this year identified all of our winter kill for the previous years. What we've done in the past is we've usually done this in July after the new budget comes out with the city in order to get our split with the agreement to replace the grass. He got proactive this year and he went ahead and went out and cut all the grass out in the landing areas around the greens and everything else, expecting to have sodded in 2 days. Then it started to rain, and all the sod are down in floodplains in Tulsa, and we couldn't get sod in for a month. And it's not just us, it's everybody else. But in the last 2 weeks, we've laid 30,000 square foot of sod all around the golf course. There was one area in particular that he was concerned about, which sits between 2 fairway and 17 green. What Lakeside has is called a dual irrigation system, which is almost 30 years old. I think it was completed in 1998. So that region of the golf course, that little spot, gets no irrigation. Anything that does grow there, is just natural. We've had years that we do get some grass coming up over there, but there's no irrigation to put our grass. Now, what it does become is our catch-all. So whenever we do order sod, we have extra. That's the first place we go to put it. But it's heavily treed, a lot of shade. It needs a fescue. It needs a zoysia. The Bermuda typically won't stay there very long. We've gone in and we've thinned out the trees, trying to get more daylight in there as well. But it's been a very, very difficult year. We've been closed for the last 2 days because Lakeside is also what's called an upstream flood management system. So we gather about the water from about 3,000 acres. It slows it down before it gets to Boomer, before it gets downtown. So it's designed to catch water and hold it. And so when we get these times of when we lose turf grass over the winter, it can make it difficult if we have a wet spring. And just so happened this year was the wettest April we've ever had, I believe, on record. And but we've got the golf course put back together. I think we have 2 spots left, which might be a total of about 50 square feet that we haven't got sod onto yet. Irrigation system is fully operational. Golf cart fleet fully operational. And yeah, we're doing the best with what we have with a 30-year-old product.
And I thoroughly understand. Look at my front yard. I understand what you're talking about. Same issue. Okay.
And I do, my son's a very good golfer, so I travel around with him all the time all over the state, going to different golf courses, and I'm always trying to hold us, to a certain degree better than some. We were at Kicking Bird last week for a junior golf tournament, and they just spent $30 million on a renovation, and I went by there, and they've got more dead grass than we have on the golf course, partially because it's new and it hasn't fully come in yet, but it's a statewide issue right now. It's not just here in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Thanks for being here and addressing the issue.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, motion to approve item I.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item I of the consent agenda. Please vote. The vote of 5-0, that item is approved. That takes us to item 6, which is public hearings. 6A is receive public comment for a closing of an alley right-of-way abutting properties located at 1101 and 1123 West University Avenue and 221 South Lincoln and 206 South Monroe. CC-25-92. Did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, we do.
Henry?
Yes, sir. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilors. Today we're looking at an alley closing for 1101 and 1123 West University Avenue. Here's the area map, which shows this property south of University, north of 3rd, and between Lincoln and Monroe. The area in the blue is the area proposed to be closed. Here's the aerial where you can see the existing house on the northeast corner of the pink area. You see a gymnasium to the south of the alley on the east, and on the west is a building which is proposed to become a parking lot. Here's the zoning map where you can see the existing zoning on the property, which is RMU, residential, multifamily, urban residential. To the north, you see U for university. To the southwest, you see RMI for multifamily, intermediate, residential. And to the southeast, you see the little orange area, which is a PUD over a RMU, which is residential, multifamily, urban. So here's the street view from the east side from Monroe Street. So what you see on the right side of this image is the existing building, which is to be rebuilt or remodeled. On the left of the screen, you see the gymnasium, and in the middle there, you see the alley, which is proposed to be closed. Here's the exhibit where you can see the 20-foot alley, again, proposed to be closed. In the development agreement, which was approved during the consent docket, we have written in that any easements that the city deems as required will be provided, which is one of the reasons why we're recommending approval of this closing. A lot of those easements have already been submitted to the city to be approved at a later date. I'm open to answer any questions if you have any.
Councilors, any questions for staff? Seeing none, at this time we'll move to the public hearing, just to let people know about the rules, and this will apply to both of our public hearings tonight. So we will ask you, I've got the folks who signed up, I'll call you up here and ask you that you introduce yourself and with your name and address. You will have, everyone who speaks has 5 minutes to speak during a public hearing. You're not required to use all 5 minutes. I do have about, I think, 19 or 20 folks signed up to speak, so at 5 minutes each, we're all gonna be here for a long time. If you want to say, that you agree with something that somebody else said, that's perfectly fine as well. But please introduce yourself. You'll have a clock up here to let you know how long you've got to speak. And we're happy to hear from you. And we'll go ahead and open this public hearing on item 6A. First person I have signed up to speak is Willie Baker.
Mayor and council members, I'm going to do something lawyers typically don't do. I'd like to yield to Jimmy Kuykendall, who I believe signed up as well. He's got the kind of encompasses what we're trying to do. And,
All right.
step away.
Thank you, Willie. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for allowing us to present here tonight as we seek approval for ordinance number 3572, closing of the alley abutting the properties as described earlier, and the associated development agreement, which was already approved in the consent agenda. We would like to thank the city of Stillwater, those in planning, engineering, the city attorney's office, who have all worked alongside us to get to this point. We were pleased to see the staff recommendations. Tonight we have our entire team here to answer any questions you may have. Our legal counsel you just met, Willie Baker, from GH2 Design, Tyler Wallace, our engineering group, Wallace Design Collective, Jackson Emery, and Colton Wayman. And we have other Sigma Chi's here as well. We're the Gamma Delta chapter of the Sigma Chi fraternity. We've been on the southwest corner of 1101 West University since 1931. We're very proud of that iconic corner to OSU's beautiful campus. As you know, here at OSU, Greek housing is considered university housing. That's certainly a privilege, but also a large responsibility. Greek housing plays a very important role in the university's overall housing plan. I believe, again, this fall, Housing and Res Life will place hundreds of freshmen in leased apartments to satisfy growing demand. Our current house was put in service in the fall of 1980, nearly 45 years ago. We need a more modern facility to not only improve structure, system, efficiencies, et cetera, but also to more closely match the expectation of today's college student and their parents, I might add. After more than 3 years of planning, designing, fundraising, and plenty of prayer, we're ready to build a new $17 million, we hope $17 million house, 30,000 square foot facility. Our new house will be of institutional quality with red iron framing, concrete floors, commercial grade mechanical systems, et cetera. It will feature state-of-the-art life safety, technology, efficiency, and comfort. We will house 87 young men and will offer amenities designed to optimize their 4-year experience and retain older members in their junior and senior year. Our plan includes reimagining our multi-use facility. Even though we originally called it a gymnasium when we built it, we quickly learned these active chapter members would use it for all kinds of activities. We are completely remodeling this building to capitalize on these other uses. Conference tables, chairs, audio-visual equipment will be included. It is our hope we can host regional conferences, the likes of the Sigma Chi Leadership Institute offering accredited stackable certificates for a growing list of transformational leadership courses. Another key part, in 2019, the old Pi Kappa Alpha house became available just catty-cornered from our property. Knowing our project was on the horizon and understanding the value of contiguous property, we gathered a group of investors to purchase that. So this property will now be used for two purposes. First, we'll carve out a 24-foot wide, two-way piece of property to make a north-south connector from 3rd Street to the center of the current alley that we're asking you to vacate, which will effectively replace the eastern part that we're trying to do away with. That 24-foot wide two-way access will continue west to Lincoln, and the increased width, the two-way flow design, and the less obvious location, it will increase access and safety. Secondly, we're going to use the balance of the property will be dedicated to an aesthetically pleasing parking area with 50 parking spaces, providing 46 for the active chapter member to help meet our parking requirement and ease the university's overall parking pressures. Closing the alley and essentially replacing it with a better option will not only allow safe and better access, but also enable integrated use of the chapter house and the multi-use facility. And a byproduct, if you'll notice from those pictures, a byproduct of all this is that we'll essentially be able to clean up that area, burying electrical lines, transmission or communication lines, removing wooden poles, adding landscape and green space will all be positive. And of course, as mentioned before, the city will maintain any access privileges that they've asked for and easements that they'd had. So I'll pause there just to give you an overview. We did send some pictures, and I've got those on the computer if you'd like to see the finished product and then kind of what we're dealing with now. If you have any questions, though, we have a team here to answer.
Are these the pictures you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilors, any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Now, is the rest of the team, the folks that I also have signed up, do you all, Jackson Emery? You can speak unless we have questions. All right. Colton Wayman, same. Tyler Wallace, Same? All right. I think that's it. Staff, is there a recommendation on this item? There's no one, I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. No one else was here to speak on this item. We don't have any questions for the team, so this time I'll close the public hearing, and then staff, you can let us know what your recommendations are.
Staff recommends approval of ordinance number 3572, closing the alley abutting properties located at 1101 and 1123 West University Avenue.
Okay, well, the ordinance is not on the agenda quite yet, so we'll address that item when we get to ordinances later on the agenda. Anything further on this item, council? All right. Item 6B, receive public comment to establish a planned unit development, PUD 25-02, in small lot single-family residential zoning at a property addressed as 1924 and 2002 East McElroy Road, CC-25-93. Did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, we do.
Henry?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilors, my name is Henry Biebelheimer with the Planning Department. Today we're looking at planned unit development, Cowboy Landing, which is at 1924 and 2002 East McElroy Road. The PUD is proposing a 42-lot residential development. Here's the area map where you can see McElroy just on the south of the property and Jardot just to the east. Here's the aerial view where you can see the surrounding residential uses. Here's the street view from McElroy where you can see the two existing residential properties. And here's the zoning map where you can see the existing RSS zoning on the property, which is once again outlined in pink. Let's go ahead and switch this. So we have this property here outlined in pink, which is what we're looking at. This property was rezoned in August of 2022 from RSL large lot single family residential to RSS small lot single family residential. On the east, it has CS commercial shopping. To the south, you see Wedgewood, which is zoned RSS small lot single family residential. To the west and to the north, you'll see RSL, which is the large lot single family residential. Here's the future land use map from the comprehensive plan, which shows the long-term plan for this property is to be commercial. So these are just a couple sections of code that I'm going to go ahead and read through, and then we can talk about later. So the planned unit development considerations. The planned unit development provides the opportunity for varying densities, greater design flexibility, mixed land uses, and improved marketability. The applicant may be required to provide amenities above and beyond those required in a conventional development. Review and approval of a PUD is a process to achieve the intent and purpose of these regulations and the comprehensive plan. In all cases, PUDs are to be reviewed as to the type and location of a proposed use and whether the overall design of a development is compatible with its surroundings. Standards and criteria established herein shall be used in any such determination. Below, I have a list of the standards as written in the zoning ordinance. Each of these standards does have a couple sections kind of explaining what these standards are and how they apply to a PUD or planned unit development. If you do have any questions on any of those, definitely let me know and we can get that code pulled up. Those listed are permitted uses, area and bulk standards, screening, access and circulation, open space, signs, common facilities, improvements, bicycle paths, transitional setbacks, and mitigation factors. So here are the requested modifications to the land development code. So to explain this chart, on the left we have the categories. In the middle we have the current code requirement, which is if you were to develop this as RSS single lot residential, what you would be required to do. And then on the right you have the proposed PUD standard. So the first category is gross density. If you were to develop this as RSS, you would be allowed 8 units per acre. The PUD or planned unit development is proposing 10.2 units per acre. Now, planned unit developments are allowed to vary sections of the land development code, but with certain limitations. So that's what this 12 is stating there, is that a PUD or planned unit development is allowed to go up to 12 units per acre in RSS small lot single family residential. So just to clarify that point there. On to lot size requirements, which is where the majority of the variances are. We have the minimum lot area per code is 5,000 square foot. The request is 2,400 square foot. We have the minimum lot width, which is 50 foot. And the request is 30 foot. We have the minimum lot depth of 100 foot with the requested 80 foot. The bulk regulations are largely met by this PUD. So you have the front setback of 20 foot, which is being met by the PUD or planned unit development. You have the rear yard of 20 foot, which is being met by the PUD. The requested variance here is a 5 foot side setback. Now, the reason that's a requested change, you are allowed a 5 foot setback in RSS single family residential, but it does with every story above 1 story, it does step back 3 foot. So if you were building a 2-story structure, it would be an 8-foot setback. The PUD request is a 5-foot setback for 2-story structures as well. And lastly, on the bottom here, we have residential single-family. Code requires 1 space per bedroom, and the proposal is 2 spaces per unit. And the statement of intent says there will be a mix of 1 to 3 bedroom units. So here's the site plan. This is a simplified site plan, not the one that was submitted with the packet. So the site plan you're approving is the one we'll see on the next slide. This is a simplified version for graphics for City Council. So on the site plan, you'll see a few call-outs. For example, the 2 common open spaces, which are here in green. 1 with a structure, which is the one right here. There's a proposed structure. 1 with a detention pond and open space. So right now the detention pond is proposed to be located here on the northern part, and this is a proposed open space along the western edge of this little handle. So there are 2 parking spaces proposed per unit. What that means is right here there's 1 in each the driveway of each unit, and there's 1 inside a 1-car garage of each unit. Those are the 2 spaces proposed for each unit. And then there are 9 community spaces being proposed right here in red, where you can see, I believe there's 6 right here and 3 right here. Those are the 9 spaces to be provided for the 42 units. And you also see the trash enclosure here in blue. Access, also, I have overlaid the red boxes on the more technical site plan, which would be reviewed today. So the 2 proposed access points are off of McElroy, which are outlined in red. 24-foot wide private streets are being proposed throughout the community for vehicular and pedestrian access. What that means is there's not internal sidewalks being proposed throughout this development, so the 24-foot wide streets would be for both the vehicles and the pedestrians to walk on. Sidewalks are being provided along McElroy here. Now, because the streets are being proposed at 24 foot wide, that means the full street is required to be a fire lane, which means there's no parking on any sides of the street, so there'll be no on-street parking throughout this development. The statement of intent states that the management company, which would be hired by the homeowners association, would be in charge of enforcing that. I believe that was everything on this slide. So the purpose of a planned unit development, once again, a section pulled from code. These are 7 sections, which will probably be discussed more. So 1, to encourage diversified living environments and accommodate a mixture of land uses that otherwise would not be allowed together on the same site. Staff thinks that this proposed PUD does meet that requirement. Number 2 is permit flexibility within the development with respect to area and bulk standards to best utilize the physical features of a particular tract of land that would not be allowed under other circumstances. Staff thinks that this is more to do with topological complications which haven't come into play for this planned unit development. So number 2 is generally seen as not applicable. Number 3, to provide and preserve meaningful open space, particularly where it is necessary or desirable for such common areas to be shared by more than one owner. This PUD or planned unit development is providing more open space than is required by code. There are some concerns about the amount of open space and the quote-unquote meaningfulness of it to be discussed. So number 4, we have encourage a more efficient use of land, public services, and natural resources than is generally achieved through conventional development. Staff believes that Cowboy Landing does meet this. Number 5, provide a smooth transition from surrounding densities, intensities, and uses within this proposed in the PUD or planned unit development. There are some concerns about the transition to the lower density residential to both the west and the north of this property. On the north of this property, there is a 6-foot vinyl dipped chain link fence that is proposed. And the way the statement of intent is written, that if there are at least 5 trees that could be preserved, there will be no need for the fence or additional planting on the north. Specifically on the west and the east was a large part of the conversation at Planning Commission, which we'll get to in a bit. But there were concerns about the transition to the existing low-density residential to the east, even though that property is zoned CS for commercial shopping for potential redevelopment in the future, and the existing RSL or small lot single-family residential to the west, which we'll get into what Planning Commission recommended for that. So on number 6, to encourage the provision of amenities beyond the minimum requirements of a conventional development, staff does think that they are going above what would be required by offering amenities. And in number 7, to encourage accessibility and affordable housing, staff does think that they are meeting the affordable housing. This PUD is for smaller lot sizes, which would generally be more affordable housing, but with the lack of internal sidewalks, there are some concerns about accessibility. It's a long analysis, so to keep going. On next steps for consideration by City Council is approval of the preliminary PUD plan. If approved, the preliminary PUD plan may serve as the preliminary plat. The final PUD will require City Council approval as well as the final plat, both of which would come back before you if this project were to be approved and move forward. There was a protest that was submitted by surrounding property owners to the city clerk's office on June 11th, 2025, which has been presented to the councilors. It has been determined that the protest procedures in Section 2358 are specific to a zoning map amendment and are not applicable to the more specific provisions applicable to the PUD preliminary plan application and its approval process, but that has been submitted for your consideration. So the Planning Commission summary: 5 neighbors spoke at Planning Commission in opposition to the proposed PUD or planned unit development. Concerns included but are not limited to parking, neighborhood compatibility, buffering existing uses, internal sidewalks, and traffic impact. With those concerns, Planning Commission did recommend conditional approval with a 3-to-1 vote on June 3rd, 2025, subject to the wooden fence along the western property line be a minimum of 8 foot tall. The proposed plan is 6 foot tall for both the east and the west for context. And the wooden fence along the eastern property line be a minimum of 7 foot tall. Additional conditions for considerations. I just want to clarify that this is here for examples to be considered. Staff is not recommending any or all of these considerations, but as we hear concerns from the neighbors, if you would like to add additional conditions, there are options there. So if you were concerned about additional buffering for existing neighbors, you could propose a larger buffer area or you could do a quantitative or qualitative addition to the landscaping requirements, quantitative being a larger buffer or more trees, or qualitative being evergreen trees or other examples. You could restrict the number and location of 2-story structures. You could limit the 2nd-story windows on specific sides of specific structures, for example, on the western boundary looking into neighbors' yards. And you could modify the height of opaque fence, especially along the northern boundary. If you had concerns about parking, you could revert back to code, which is 1 per bedroom. You could increase the number of community parking spaces to be shared between the houses. You could include on-street parking as an option, which would require wider streets and site design layout. You could limit the location of parking, for example, in front yards, as that was a concern that was brought up, as everyone would just park in the front yard. If you had concerns about density, you could increase the minimum lot size or decrease the density requirement, both of which are being modified by this PUD or planned unit development. You could encourage beautification along McElroy to show the quality of the development. You could encourage meaningful open space, which could both be quantitative or qualitative. You could require internal sidewalks, which is a modification being requested with this PUD or planned unit development, or you could require a turnaround at the northern end of the dead-end street. All of which are options, as well as other things not mentioned. This is just a list for discussion. Open to answer any questions if you have any.
Councilors, any questions for staff?
Not yet.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
I just, Henry, could you kind of give an overview of how a plan like this is reviewed internally at the city? I know, like, does the fire department look at it? Who else has looked at this to this point and had to give some kind of okay or not okay on it?
Yes, sir. That's a great question. So this has to go through the IRC, or internal review committee. So it's been reviewed by our utilities companies, by the fire marshal's office, by our internal engineering and our planning departments. It's generally reviewed against best practices as well as the standards as laid out, which was that list that was provided earlier, and all of those specifics that gets into, as well as other people that I'm sure I'm not thinking of.
So the fire marshal looks at it with this question of the entire street needing to be a fire lane.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if the fire marshal had any specific concerns about this one? Oh, there's a fire marshal here.
Yep.
Thomas, do you mind coming up and? Glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you. Thomas Tharp, Stillwater Fire Marshal. So on the code, I did hear him say something about the 24-foot street. Code actually with a fire hydrant requires 26 feet. So that would be inside a curb to inside a curb. Anything 26 feet or less requires no parking on both sides. So if it was a little wider than 26 feet, it would allow parking on one side.
Okay. So as this is proposed, no parking on either side.
Correct.
And from the fire marshal's perspective, as long as there's not cars parked there, then you'll have access.
Correct.
To where
yes.
you need to get access
and
to.
Those notes have been made through the IRC meetings.
Thank you.
So while you're here,
Mm-hmm.
question for you regarding enforcement of the fire lane. So there are cars that park there. Who actually enforces that? Does the fire department, police department, HOA? Who's going to enforce that?
That would be your parking enforcement, I believe, through the PD.
Okay. So it's a gated community.
Mm-hmm.
Can they get in there to enforce it?
That I do not know.
Okay.
With it being a gated community, the fire department requires that it have a knock switch put on the gate to where in case of an emergency, we can gain access by using our Knox key.
So one more hypothetical. There's a fire in there and there's some cars parked in the street. Can you get your trucks by them? Do you move the cars out of the way? Do you hook them up to a chain? What do you do?
We do the best we can at that point in time. And the design for the 26 feet is to allow 2 fire trucks to pass one another. That's the reason for the 26 feet.
And we had a discussion about a fire truck going down that 150-foot dead-end street
Yes.
and the ability to back out.
Yeah. The code allows 150-foot dead end before they require a turnaround. And in the design, you can see that there's a 150-foot mark. And at that 150-foot mark, it still allows 150 foot to go around the house with our fire hose. And that also meets the code requirement. So if there was another house, one more to the north, and the street was any longer, then it would require a turnaround. But per code, for the 150 foot straight in the street and then 150 foot reach around the house, that all meets the code requirement. Any other questions?
Thanks, sir. Appreciate you being here. Any other questions for staff at this point? All right, at this point, I will open our public hearing. Again, please introduce yourself, name and address. Please stick to the 5 minutes. Please feel free to just let us know you agree with what the last person said, or you want to reemphasize something they said. You can do that too. I will start with a representative from the applicant, Stephen Gose.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Stephen Gose with Gose & Associates, 113 East 8th Avenue. I'm just going to take this back to Henry's site plan if we need it when we get to it. Here on behalf of our client, Hawk Development Holdings, Henry covered a lot of this, but seeking a PUD approval for 42 units on 4.2 acres. As Henry said, it's currently zoned small lot, single family. It was rezoned from large lot several years ago. It is commercial on the comprehensive plan. I wasn't here when that was done to know why, but I think it gets it over to the nursing homes further to the west. The property to the east of us, it came out during just the last few weeks that it is zoned commercial. The city maps show it as RSS. So that's some of the screening and the fencing we did over there was because of that, but we're not gonna change the plan now. So it's anticipated to be in 3 phases. The site plan you see shows it. There's 13 units in phase 1 with a driveway that'll line up with Wedgewood. That's envisioned to be a full gated access with a call box with space for 2 cars. That road would be built. The 13 units on either side of that road, the common space, the common parking spaces, the detention pond, water and sewer. Phase 2 would be that south road extending over to the west to the secondary gate, which would allow resident egress, but entrance would only be for emergency, like the fire marshal covered. And then phase 3 would be the balance of the units in the northwest quadrant. 6-foot sidewalk is being proposed along McElroy to comply with the sidewalk requirements. In addition, we're going to dedicate 7 feet of right-of-way along there to get the half right-of-way to 40 feet for a total 80 foot for the minor arterial street designation. Coming in with this more dense than RSS, there's a national trend just in trying to save costs, provide accessible from the affordability side, not necessarily handicap accessible. And these smaller lots, it's about a 40% reduction in the front footage of a lot, which when you factor in the paving, water and sewer, is quite a bit, and can allow for homes that are hopefully more attainable to people. We talked about the fire lanes. One thing since the last meeting we've talked with staff, that south road in phase 2 currently is 24 feet. we can make that 27 feet and allow parking on one side of that, which will get us another 8 community spaces in addition to the ones that were already shown. Screening on the west side and the east side is proposed originally a 6-foot fence with trees at about every 30 foot, so every lot that's on there. Planning Commission made a condition for 8 foot on the west, 7 foot on the east. The developers agreed to move forward with that. The north property line, we were proposing originally a vinyl coated 6-foot fence, just try to provide, there's some open space that way, try not to completely box in the development. And the lot to the northwest, the house for that faces sunrise or skyline, and it's pretty far to the west. Again, the common areas being proposed in phase 1. I know during the neighborhood meeting and planning commission, there was some discussion about the OG&E easement that's along the front, which affects the right-of-way dedication. Potentially, there's high voltage lines serving OSU across the frontage of this. It's approximately a 27-foot easement. It varies in width a little bit, but there's 2 or 3 of those tall poles on this site. And so that easement is for those. The whole site is designed with the 7-foot right-of-way dedication in mind, and we're currently working with OG&E and their transmission group to figure out how we get that dedication done. Can we dedicate it because it's in an easement? Is there extra signatures? But we're working through that. But the whole site is designed with that 7-foot in mind. There was also some concerns with traffic and whether a traffic study was done or not. We have not. This would generate about 42 trips a unit based on the ITE trip generations. The preliminary plat requirement is for 100 trips in a peak hour or 1,000 in a day, which we're not near that. So Safa Lucy with the development team is here, can address those concerns. John Bartley is the attorney for the project, and we can answer any questions now or later. We'll let them speak as well. So.
I have them signed up. Do you guys want to speak now, or do you want to speak after? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Simon Ringsmith.
Good evening. I have printouts to follow along for the counselors. My name is Simon Ringsmith, 1705 East Linda Avenue. I live near the proposed Cowboy Landing. The development does not meet, it does not fit with the existing neighborhood. It does not meet city codes and should not be approved. In 2022, the current owner of the property requested rezoning from RSL to RSS, and that was approved. And new houses could be built today under that zoning requirement that would actually be a good fit for the neighborhood. This is what the developer actually promised 3 years ago when he requested the rezoning. But what was promised in 2022 is not what's being delivered today. Instead of houses that fit with the neighborhood, the developer is requesting yet another rezoning from RSS to PUD to do something else entirely. Our neighborhood is unique in Stillwater. Most of the lots are 1 acre, and several are even larger. Page 2 in front of you shows a view of the parcel of land where Cowboy Landing would be built. It's 27 acres. There's 22 houses on it right now. But that low density with spread out houses and large trees is rare in Stillwater. But that is precisely why people like living there so much. And residents put down roots in this neighborhood that go back decades. This is not a transient move in, move out neighborhood. People live there for decades. And improving the PUD for Cowboy Landing would change all of that. The proposed development would go where you see on page 3, which you've already seen this before, but we'll get to a couple more. The proposed development is 42 houses on 4.2 acres. The developer actually calls them micro houses. And it's right in the middle of a neighborhood where there's fewer than 1 house per acre. So you can see the discrepancy here. As Phil Robertson was fond of saying, that ain't right. Our quiet, calm, low-density neighborhood is just not the place for 42 microhouses. But now I want to talk specifically about how this plat violates 2 city codes. Page 4, please. Section 23295 of City Code states that planned unit development such as this one must, quote, provide a smooth transition from surrounding densities, intensities, and uses with those proposed in the PUD. The developer's solution to meet this code requirement is I don't know how this works, but this doesn't seem like a smooth transition to me. A wood fence and then a chain link fence. I'm not sure how a wood fence qualifies as a smooth transition from 10 houses per acre to 1 house per acre. When this was discussed in the Planning Commission meeting on June 3rd, the proposed solution will just make the fence a little higher. I don't see how that solves the problem of a smooth transition. But then page 5 it brings up the issue of sidewalks. City Code 23356 states that sidewalks are required on one side of every street in a residential development. They're required. The only exception, though, is if it's a cul-de-sac. And if so, the street can't be more than 500 feet long. So in the June 3rd Planning Commission meeting, the developer stated that they're just not going to do sidewalks, even though it's required. They're not going to do it because they just don't have room for them in the development as currently platted. They also noted in the Planning Commission meeting that sidewalks aren't necessary in cul-de-sacs, so there's precedent for this kind of thing. But Cowboy Landing is not a cul-de-sac. It's not. And even if it were a cul-de-sac, City Code states that the road in a cul-de-sac has to be shorter than 500 feet to get around the sidewalk requirement. Cowboy Landing has almost 1,000 linear feet of roads. So it doesn't meet the code. The roads are too long, and it's not a cul-de-sac. The bottom line here is that City Code requires sidewalks on one side of all the streets in a development like Cowboy Landing. Developers can't just say, it's fine, we'll just call it a cul-de-sac. If the plat doesn't meet City Code, you go back to the drawing board and you create a plat that works, even if it means you can't fit as many houses in it as you might want. I know a lot of time has been spent on this plat under consideration or this PUD, but if it doesn't meet code, you can't approve it. A solution was actually discussed in the June 3rd Planning Commission meeting. Keep it as RSS. Maintain status quo. Just put in fewer houses. That's how similar developments have gone all over town, like Parkview Estates, Skyline East. They're zoned RSS. The developers admitted in the Planning Commission meeting that they could actually do this. They don't want to do it. Instead, they want to rezone it as PUD and put in a development that doesn't fit with the neighborhood and doesn't meet city codes. Their request tonight should not be approved. If it is, it would be bad for the neighborhood, but here's the thing, it would also set a dangerous precedent for future development elsewhere in town. It would send the message that developers can ignore some codes that they just don't find convenient, and that spot zone is actually a viable option to consider when growing the city. We know this is going to be developed. We just want it done responsibly. Thank you for your time. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you. Danny Lamar. That's a concurrence. Thank you, sir. Jennifer Sanders.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jen Sanders. I live at 1702 East McElroy Road, which is one lot over to the west of this planned unit development. I'm here to ask the council members to encourage ethical community planning and development because the developers seem to be prioritizing profit over the public good. It's my opinion that the owners are overdeveloping the land, just as the last person has said. Ethical community planning and development would include a community that's designed for diverse use and diverse populations. This attribute is one of the requirements of a planned unit development, to my understanding. A community designed for diverse populations would have housing that's affordable and accessible to a variety of renters and owners. If this property was accessible for college students, it would have 1 parking space per bedroom. If this housing development was accessible for families with children, there would need to be connected sidewalks and play spaces. If it was accessible for elders in the community, it would need ADA accessible driveways and sidewalks. And I don't believe any of these are part of the design elements that are in this blueprint that has been shared. I need you to visualize this road. McElroy Road is a very busy street with 2 lanes on each side in each direction, so 4 lanes. The sidewalk, the unit is on the, this is planned on the north, and I live on the north. The sidewalk is on the south side of the street, the existing sidewalk. To get there, you have to cross McElroy. There is no, there's one crosswalk where Skyline Road is. It is not safe to cross the street. So if there are 42 units with families in that development, they would have to cross McElroy to get to an existing sidewalk. And they have, the developers have mentioned that they plan to put a sidewalk, but only in front of the PUD and not connecting to Jardot or not connecting to Skyline or to the existing sidewalks. So that's a problem. Where is somebody going to go on this little piece of sidewalk that doesn't connect to anything? It's not useful or efficient. Ethical community planning and development also involves planning for the long-term well-being of the community members, planning for community interaction, and having spaces that have walkability and connectivity are 2 of the criteria for a community that considers the long-term well-being of its members. Experts in this field of community planning, which is not me, recommend that at least 30% of the land be used for street networks and parking. In this community, that would mean at least 1 1/3 of the acres of the 4 acres are designated for parking and streets. And it doesn't seem like we have sufficient parking if you think about 42 units and potentially at least 84 people in those units. There just isn't sufficient parking. The fact that somebody has to park in their garage and then somebody's going to be parked in the driveway just behind that car, and they're going to play some kind of car Tetris to get in and out. And you can also not park in the, you can't park in the street, so there's no space for your guests to park. And if you do, you're blocking the fire zone, and so forth. Ethical community planning also has spaces for community interaction, and we're questioning the allotment of this common space and how is that meaningful open space, community space, what's planned for that space that might encourage community members to use it. Walkability and connectivity are vital for the safety of the people who are going to be living there, for the safety of all of us who live around. It would take part of our property, part of the easement or the frontage of our property to have a sidewalk that connects, but that is what is necessary for everyone's safety involved. Also, there are 2 schools. There's an elementary school and a junior high. Ethical planning would involve thinking about how do we connect to those schools. Are there sidewalks? Are there passageways for families and children to get to those schools? Or are they cutting through people's yards and crossing streets and putting them in dangerous scenarios? So that's another thing that I think should be considered. Since this development company is prioritizing profit over the public good, I ask that the city council members engage in responsible leadership and require them to have ethical accommodations. First, don't approve the rezoning to allow 10.2 units. Keep it at the existing 8 units. That would allow them space to have enough parking, enough streets, enough community street size and community spaces. And then second, ask that they are required to provide sidewalks that are connected for people to use in an interactive and responsible way. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Fairbanks.
Members of the City Council, my name is Steve Fairbanks and I live at 1724 East McElroy. That's right beside this PUD. I'm here to oppose the approval of the proposed planned unit development called Cowboy Landing, designated as PUD 25-02. This is an extremely dense development on 4.2 acres that includes 42 microhomes on 2,400 square foot lots in a gated community with no on-street parking and no sidewalks inside the gates. Many of the units may be short-term rentals that changes the character and the community feel of the neighborhood. My wife Kathy and I built our home in 1981 and have enjoyed our quiet neighborhood for 44 years. Our lot and the lots west and north of the planned development are zoned RSL, large lot, single-family residence. The neighbors' lots to the south of the planned development, the Wedgewood addition, are zoned RSS, small lot, single-family. The planned development is a radical change to our neighborhoods and does not provide a smooth transition from surrounding densities as required by city code. It is important to note that the staff report that followed the following statement, the staff has some concerns with Cowboy Landing as it relates to the provision for a smooth transition to the RSL zone property. Our neighbors agree with the planning staff's concern and they oppose this development. We contacted 25 of 27 landowners within the 300-foot buffer zone. They signed a protest in opposition to the development. The other 2 landowners could not be reached when we filed the papers. This protest with 33 signatures was filed with the city clerk last week. Another petition was also filed that contained 62 signatures of 28 homeowners in surrounding neighborhoods outside the 300-foot buffer who also opposed this development. Many of those who signed the petitions were concerned enough to show up tonight at the meeting to reflect their opposition. They're the ones that happen to have little orange stickers on their shirts. There's a number of them here. They expressed concerns that many of the 3-bedroom homes will be inviting for rentals to college students and the issues with parking noise and who enforces violations. We realize that a PUD proposal is allowed to request variances from surrounding zones, but this request constitutes a dramatic change from city codes. I hope that you personally viewed the property in question and the surrounding neighborhoods prior to this meeting. If you did, we believe that you will agree that this type of project does not fit with the nature and density of the surrounding properties that are single-family residential large lots and homes. I suspect that you would not want this type of development next to your own home. We don't either. The following is clear. Property owners and residents in nearby neighborhoods do not want this PUD. Cowboy Landing does not comply with the provisions of the PUD requirements of city code that require a smooth transition to existing neighborhoods. I urge you to consider the opinions of surrounding neighbors and do not approve this request. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Larry Caldwell.
Thank you. Good evening, councilors. My name is Larry Caldwell. I live at 3312 West Cypress Mill. I'd like to make some comments in support of my friends, the Fairbanks, and their neighbors in opposition to this development. I'd like to specifically address some of the issues with the transition, the so-called smooth transition from the adjoining neighborhoods. You'll hear some trends here that are starting to develop. I'd like to add a few more details. As Steve and the others have discussed, this is an extremely dense proposal for a development. It's a radical change to their neighborhood and does not provide a smooth transition as required by city code. If you take a look at the existing neighborhood along McElroy on the north side, there are 4 residents along there in 3.2 acres of those lots. That works out to be an average of 1.25 dwellings per acre. The development itself is 10.2 dwellings per acre. And there's just a fence dividing those two densities. That does not sound like much of a smooth transition. In addition, they're talking about 2-story homes that are going to be just 20 foot away from the fence that adjoins the Fairbanks and the others on the other side. The 2-story homes are going to be 15 to 20 feet above the top of the fence that's in there, with windows overlooking the property, and especially in the backyard over the deck and in the backyard of those. This is quite a change from the surrounding neighborhood. We were glad to note the comments from the staff that they were also concerned about that smooth transition. We also noticed that this development does not comply with the transition setback that's in the PUD requirements in city code. It states that where PUD abuts an existing residential district, a density transition area shall be established for a depth of 100 feet along the common property line of the subject PUD property in the adjoining residential district. This section requires a density of no more than 8 dwellings per acre in that 100-foot transition zone. The development plan includes 7 dwellings along 7/10 of an acre in that first 100 foot of that zone. That works out to be a density of 10.1 dwellings per acre, which exceeds the maximum PUD density by more than 25%. The proposal is not definitive at all in some specifics that are very important. For example, it says unit sizes range from 800 square feet to 1,600 square feet. So evidently not all of the units are going to be 2-story. So how many will be single-story? How many will be double-story? Where will those be located? What are the type and size of trees that they have alluded to along that west boundary? Will the west boundary fence, what will that be made out of? The Fairbanks and all their neighbors would certainly rather that the planned development and not be approved because it just does not fit into their neighborhood. And we're very reluctant even to acknowledge this, but as you saw in the Planning Commission's report, there were some things that they said that could be done to help mitigate it. We honestly don't like any of those, but some of those are that they'd mentioned in there that limit the number of houses on the west side to only 5 instead of 7. Widen the buffer area to 50 foot instead of just 20 foot along that west boundary. Require the houses along the west boundary to be single story instead of double story so they wouldn't be overlooking others' property. Require trees that are at least 12 foot tall and evergreen so you don't have to wait 10 years for them to grow to provide a buffer. Require that 8-foot fence on the west side and the east side to be made out of a composite material rather than wood. That's going to be much more maintenance free. After 5 or 6 years, that wood fence is going to start deteriorating. And then again, we've talked about the parking. So again, we don't want to leave the impression that everybody would be satisfied with these. We don't like any of those. Well, we appreciated the Planning Commission at least trying to address that. So in conclusion, we strongly recommend that you do not approve this planned development because it just plain does not fit into the existing neighborhood there. So we'd ask you to please consider the opinions and the concerns of the surrounding neighbors that have been there for a long time and hope to be there for a long time in the future. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, sir. Kathy Fairbanks?
I agree with everything that's already been said.
Thank you, ma'am. Dave Meyer?
Good evening. My name is Dave Meyer. I live at 1102 North Payne Street. It's on the corner of Linda and Payne. I'd like to take you back to a Planning Commission meeting on May 3rd, 2022, where the rezoning of this property was discussed. As I watched the meeting, Mr. Lucy addressed the commissioners about his map amendment request. I quote, "What we're trying to do, we're hoping for 5,000 square feet lots, keeping it residential in that area. And we're trying to make sure we keep it a family environment for single family homes. We're not looking for apartments. We're not looking for commercial. We just need to adjust the size of the units to kind of mirror the development that's directly across the street from us." End of quote. Mr. Lucy sat down and left the commissioners and those in opposition with the impression that the 4 acres would be developed as 5,000 square foot lots. Larry Roy wanted to know if he understood the lots to be 5,000 square feet. Chair Jana Phillips asked Ms. Driscoll to the podium to address this issue of the lot size. Ms. Driscoll said 5,000 square foot lots would be the minimum size, but they could be larger. Chair Jana Phillips asked Ms. Driscoll, and I quote, "So 5,000 square feet would be your worst case scenario as far as density goes. So you're saying 18 lots?" Ms. Driscoll said, "Yes, that is correct." I believe the planning commissioners agreed to the rezoning based on misleading information at the time, and those of us in opposition who live in the area believe the worst case scenario would be 18 lots and not 42. So fast forward to June 3rd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. We now have an RSS PUD, not 5,000 square foot lots, but 24 square foot lots, not anything that mirrors Wedgwood, as Mr. Lucy alluded to on May 3rd, 2022. Not a density of 18 units, as Chair Janet Phillips and members and those of us opposed were led to believe. Cowboy Landing has a density of 10.2 units per acre. Wedgwood, Phase 1, directly across the street from Cowboy Landing, has a density of 3.13 units per acre. They do not mirror each other. This development based on density alone is not compatible with the surrounding area zone RSL. If you review the summary of June 3rd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting, you will see that even Commissioners Prather, Peters, and Shanahan voiced concerns about the density of Cowboy Landing. A side note. In 2011, the Planning Commission approved the Aspen Heights complex, which was to be built on the southwest corner of Jardot and East McElroy. Some of you may remember that. At the time, it was 25 acres, 214 units with a density of 8.4 per acre. The density of Cowboy Landing is greater than Aspen Heights. Fortunately, for those of us who own homes in this area, the City Council denied the development for that area mainly because of the density. It just didn't fit the area. It was not compatible with the large lot area. My property is approximately the same distance from Cowboy Landing as Aspen Heights was. I am forever grateful for the City Council's non-approval of Aspen Heights. That decision truly preserved the spaciousness and the flavor of our neighborhood. Cowboy Landing is similar to Aspen Heights, but with much higher density, which does not mirror Wedgwood at all. I am respectfully asking the City Council to deny the development of Cowboy Landing for the same reasons Aspen Heights was denied in 2011. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you, sir. John Dickey?
John Dickey, I live at 701 North Skyline Lane in Stillwater, and I'm in the little circle that's part of it because I didn't know about it, because the first card I got from the company to talk about it, I got the day of the meeting, and I checked my mail and the meeting was over. The next one I got, I was out of town, and I just trust people. That's my nature. But when our neighbors came and knocked on my door and said, hey, you're in the circle, and I looked at it, my immediate response was, where are you putting the cars? You can't park on the street, and you got college kids. It looks like a college development. I mean, you can say it's not, but you can say a lot of things. But when I look at it, I think that's where college kids are going to live. And you know what? I think we need affordable housing for college students in our community that fit the neighborhood and fit, because I concur with them. But I just walked my street and talked to all but two of my neighbors who own houses and have lived there multiple years. And they signed the petition because they all disagreed with it, because they said it just, when they looked at it, they said, I'm not very smart, but that doesn't look like it fits with our neighborhood. And so I'm glad that you sit in those chairs. And I will look at you and say, thank you for what you do for our city. One of my prayers, I retired recently, and probably if I were still working, I would have done more research, but being retired, I think I'm working more than I ever did when I was a pastor. But listening to their research, I just have a question. How many times can you say, I need a variance, before you say enough is enough? Because if I said, oh, I need a variance, and oh, I need another variance, and maybe I need one more variance, and I didn't really tell you what I was doing then, at some point, if it smells, if it just doesn't smell good. If you ever have heard that saying before, it just doesn't have a good aroma. And so I told my neighbors I'd come speak, so I've kept my word. And I'm going to close with this. James says this in the Bible: if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask, and God will grant it liberally. Lord, would you grant these counselors your wisdom to do what's right for our city? Jeremiah 29 says, seek the welfare of your city, because when you seek its welfare, in its welfare, we all have welfare. And I'm praying that you seek the welfare of the city find places for stuff that meet the rules. So I'm in opposition. I'm in the little circle, and my neighbors are in opposition, and I speak for them because most of them are in their 70s. They're older than I am. So thank you guys very much for what you do. Really do appreciate you.
Leslie Meyer?
Hello. My name is Leslie Meyer, and I live at 1102 North Payne Street. My husband and I are a short distance from the planned development. My family has lived in this neighborhood since 1971. This is the third development proposal with the potential to negatively impact our neighborhood in the past 14 years. A great deal of time and effort has been invested by many people in the surrounding neighborhoods in an attempt to preserve their quality of life and property values. My understanding of the process is that the City Council actually has more leeway than the Planning Commission does to consider the concerns of the surrounding residents when determining whether a proposed development is a good fit for a particular location. As residents of the area have learned in the past, developers use language to promote their desired plans that tends to dress up their intentions in order to make it more palatable. In reality, the outcome can fall short of the picture that was painted. My comments address the statements made by the developer in the statement of intent that was included in your packet. Page 1, paragraph 2 states that, quote, "This community is designed to enhance resident privacy and security while fostering a strong sense of community through shared amenities and efficient use of land." Page 1, paragraph 4 states that, quote, "Communal spaces and amenities will promote a vibrant and sustainable living environment whose privacy is enhanced in a 42-unit micro-house community on 4.2 acres. Certainly not the privacy of the current residents of the neighborhood. What are the amenities that promote a vibrant and sustainable living environment? The plan does not appear to include a playground or a picnic area, just vacant land at the very back of the development. This does not look like a family-friendly development, but rather a student housing addition. Even the name Cowboy Landing alludes to that. It seems to be common for parents to purchase homes for their college students and rent out the extra bedrooms to other students. These are temporary residents who typically are not as invested in the quality and upkeep of their neighborhoods as are the permanent residents in the area. Page 1, paragraph 3 of the Statement of Intent indicates that the Homeowners Association will be responsible for hiring a management company to, quote, "oversee the maintenance to shared infrastructure, including private roads, gated access, communal amenities, and the emergency access routes, ensuring long-term quality and consistency for residents." If the owners of the majority of these units end up being out-of-town or out-of-state owners, who will be responsible for the operation of the Homeowners Association? These being parents of students at OSU. I have been a member and an officer of a homeowners association in the past, and I have a family member who currently has those responsibilities. It sounds simple, but the success of a development managed by a homeowners association requires conscientious, dedicated resident owners who are willing to volunteer their time to make sure that things are taken care of as they should be. This is a thankless position, and it can sometimes be very taxing when problems or disagreements arise. If the trend goes toward absentee owners and residents who view this as a temporary living arrangement, much like a rental, the long-term success of the development may suffer. If this is the case, the developer will be completely out of the picture and bear no responsibility at that time. For these and many other reasons, I respectfully ask you to deny the variances requested for the planned unit development and uphold the RSS zoning requirements that were put in place in 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anthony Shore.
My name is Anthony Shore. I reside at 2001 East Linden Avenue. I've lived there for 22 years. I'm considered a newcomer to the neighborhood. Despite having only 15 minutes of notice, I managed to attend the first neighborhood information meeting. I returned home, checked the mail, found out I had a meeting in 15 minutes, and rushed over. And by the way, during the meeting, the developer stated he'd only mailed the notice 5 days before, on a Friday. This is contrary to what he's quoted in the information package you got. When I asked the developer what his target demographic was, I understood him to say, I was confused, him to say that his target customer were those who wished to own properties for use during home football games. This was surprising. But this is, however, consistent with the statement of intent, which says, it is envisioned that some of these units may be used for short-term rental properties in the future. A statement ensuring that short-term rentals must comply with local, state, federal laws, including applicable permits, licenses, and taxes will be included in the covenants. For those people who don't know what a short-term rental is, it's probably not what you think it is. I'm sure the counselors know it's actually something like Airbnb. Okay? So, short-term renters may be unaware of or unwilling to comply with restrictions against on-street parking. They're there overnight or over a weekend. Short-term rentals do not always include garage access in the rentals. It's been very, very common. Airbnb, you don't get to use the garage. So that's half the parking gone there. So we may have problems if they do have marketing towards short-term rental investors, where we have a lot of really transient residents who won't honor the parking rules. The application indicates that a maximum of 93 parking spaces will be provided. Assuming up to 3 bedrooms per dwelling, and by the way, they never actually tell you how many bedrooms there are in the total complex. This matters for parking and other numbers. Up to 126 parking spaces will be required if this was just simply the raw RSS with still this many units. I was going to mention that the original documentation and agenda I got said that the side yards were 5. I noticed that's been corrected to 8. I have a concern about 8-foot or 5-foot side yards on a 2-story building. When you put those taller buildings next to each other and you have a fire, as the fire marshal can tell you, you can have radiant spread from building to building. There is no way to get around to the back of the building without exposing your personnel to going through that tunnel and dragging a hose all the way around. The plan says, by the way, that there will be fences between each one of these units. So going around the back of the unit is a very small space. 5 foot, not 8. Mr. Caldwell has already stole my thunder on the next bit about the transition areas. The code very much does require transition areas and setbacks, and it also requires that such information be put it on the plans. I see no calculation for these. RSS and RSL both have different transitional areas. They're not accounted for in the tables, which says 10.2, which should actually be worse than that because you're not allowed 12. That quoted K, J is the one right before it says this isn't allowed. The landscape buffer zones on the western, northwestern, and eastern sides all occur on private lots, not part of the common areas. So it's not clear, is the management company going to come into the backyards and maintain these buffer landscapes? I mean, because this thing depends upon the buffer landscapes for privacy. If they're not maintained, and I don't know how fast they can be grown, they'll be useless. The site itself slopes 25 feet from south to north. If you don't live in the area and haven't been staring at that lot for the last 20 years, you wouldn't really think about this. With a 2-story building on top of a 20-foot drop, it's 45 foot above you. It's awfully hard to screen that with a five trees, maybe a chain link fence. That's what I get to look at. The statement of intent fails to include the required statement of the special considerations which require the PUD zoning classification rather than a conventional district. Sorry, I'm almost done.
Couple seconds.
Because it's not there. It doesn't say why we're doing a PUD. It also, I point out that a PUD is not to be utilized only for the purposes of obtaining a variance to the bulk standards of the city code requirements, which appears to be what we're hearing here. For these reasons, I urge you to reject the application.
Thank you, sir. Patrick Roy.
Thank you, councilors. I'm Patrick Roy, and I'm here representing my mom, Jolene Roy. We own the property. She owns the property that is the 6 acres directly to the north of this property. Have owned it since the early 70s. We moved there in 1969. When I was growing up in Stillwater working for Lambert Construction, I learned a phrase that went something like, do not attempt to put 10 pounds of garbage in a 5-pound sack. Or thereabouts, and I kind of believe that analogy applies when considering this proposal. The proposal to establish approximately 42 dwellings in an area that was originally intended for 2 or 3 single-family homes per acreage seems very out of place and is different from the original design proposal that I believe was originally quoted to my mom based on what a few of these others have said as well. I believe that's accurate. I believe that it will certainly deteriorate the property values of these homes surrounding this area. And furthermore, I believe that while these homes are listed as single family, they reek of the nature associated with short-term transient type or yearly type leases associated with short-term housing rentals for the university. And I commonly, and potentially even worse, as already mentioned, I think these things kind of smell like the type of things that turn into Airbnb rentals associated with the market during the university football season. I'm of the opinion that these tiny homes are a very near cousin to multifamily dwellings or potentially mobile homes or RV parks. And I believe everybody in this room would agree that that's not good for this neighborhood. Recently, I had an experienced CEO in the home building industry look at this, and he told me that based on the size of these homes and the proposed price range, that what we could expect is that these homes are going to be built out of the lower quality end of building materials. In fact, he jokingly said that within the industry, they jokingly refer to these types as future slums. He was teasing, but I think he was accurate when he was saying that. Stillwater might really need and benefit from this type of housing, but we don't think that it's appropriate for this location. As a side note, we had the opportunity to sell our property to the developer during the initial phase of this some years ago, and I can't be more thankful that we didn't, because I can't imagine what those 6 acres being turned into a PUD housing, today would look like, right up to the back of my mom's house. So speaking of my mom and my family as future owners of the 6 acres that are still there, we strongly oppose this and hope that you will reject this. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I have 2 more people signed up who I think are both the developer and the representatives of the developer. Were there any other neighbors, surrounding folks other than John Bartley and Saifa Lucy who were planning to speak tonight? Okay. Mr. Bartley?
My name is John Bartley, 623 South Lewis here in Stillwater. I appreciate this public hearing. This is always a difficult conversation, and there is no doubt that every concern that the property owners and the others that have been here tonight, what they've expressed is absolutely true to a point. There are many items that, while true from that perspective, doesn't mean that there are not just as valid perspectives and views to go along with them. This is not the type of conversation that I want to get into any type of emotional conversation. This needs to be on the substance and the merits of what has been proposed, what does city code allow, and the wonderful element and tool that a PUD is and what it can be. The PUD can allow, with the underlying base zoning, to amend those bulk standards in ways to accomplish things that are beneficial, but do not meet the standardized rule that is the blanket broad brushstroke of zoning. My time when trying to make those decisions of zoning or rezoning, I absolutely disliked when it was a map amendment that was pushed or presented to City Council. You never know what they're going to do after it's rezoned. That's the beauty of the PUD. You know exactly what is being asked for and what will be done. And if what is approved is not implemented, you and city staff will have the ability to stop it. Now, a couple of the concerns I do want to address. One, on the density. Well, there are several items that have been brought up that a developer, by right, under RSS could do that have been brought up as valid concerns. There's nothing that this PUD is doing as far as distance from the fence or transition that would be different than this was just a straight RSS plat. And if this was a straight RSS plat, you could still have two-story houses 20 feet from the side. That would not require any additional buffering. Here, at least, we know what's being proposed. We're able to put in those transitions that you all deem appropriate. That's what I like about the PUD. One comment was made that I do want to address, and has to do with the density. The Aspen Heights development that was proposed was a quarter mile to the east, the other side of Jardo. I was sitting up there when that was denied. And it was denied because of the size, the geographical size. Let me phrase it. I voted no, geographical size of what was being proposed. And that I felt like that would harm future growth in those undeveloped areas. It was not density that caused me to vote the way I did 14 years ago on Aspen Heights. With that, I'm almost out of time anyway, but I am available for questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Alusi.
Good evening. This is Safe Lucy. My address is 2002 East McElroy Road. That's the address I'm representing tonight. I first want to say thank you to everyone that's involved here, including my neighbors. Most of I've not met yet. We've wanted to meet you all several times. As we had 2 meeting times that we offered to try to meet everyone. During each meeting process, we did address issues that were brought up to us. I want to go a little bit backwards in time, just to 2012 2022 as was brought before us, we greatly appreciate the zoning to RSS. The nice thing about that meeting that highlighted everything, and I wish y'all had been here when we had that first meeting, was that the Roys presented to us a very important factor. Their father was greatly concerned about our project. And because of his circumstances and the rest of his soul, he's passed now, we held off and we promised the Roy family we would hold off on all development because we did not want to cause concern to Mr. Roy due to the fact of their nature that they've had an impact on my own family's life. Sorry for getting a little touched up. They supported my mother while she grew up in the American Legion Children's Home. So that's why we're attached to Stillwater. After his passing, now we start the process of how are we going to utilize this land. It's now in 2025, with the amount of tariffs on everything happening, construction has gotten incredibly expensive. This is why we decided to go with the PUD. And the home sites are 1,300 square foot. So I don't really consider those micro homes or tiny homes. And I think we're trying to bring a pretty product to the site. I was trying to share with you. We do have this in the PUD. This kind of gives you an idea of what we're trying to put there. Again, I don't envy any of you all's process in this decision-making process. I served as a career firefighter paramedic, so I'm very aware of life safety when it comes to considerations of how first responders are going to get to any of these locations. The structure and the layout that the civil engineers have done, I think, has demonstrated a clear passageway for multiple responders to be able to get into and address any issues that occur. Due to the nature of new materials, we are already in a higher fire code rating. So I think we're mitigating a lot of issues. I know the city of Stillwater's approved a lot of processes right now with the hospital going in. We have more citizens coming in. We need housing. I know we're not the solution. We're only 42 homes. We would have liked this initially to have been 80 units. However, we couldn't get any one of our neighbors to sell us additional land, which kind of landlocked us. So we're doing the best we can. We greatly have listened to our neighbors throughout this entire process. I do appreciate you all taking your time to come out here and see us. And, again, I'm sorry for anyone that's unhappy about this process. I know a lot of people were not happy about the road work that was done in North Perkins. So you're never going to make everyone happy. So those are my closing remarks. Do you guys have any questions?
How did we get from where we were 3 years ago with 18 lots to now having 42 lots? What was that process, and explain why that happened?
So the reason that we got to that process after waiting 3 years is the cost involved in development. Work has gone nuts with the amount of infrastructure that's going to have to go in there for our development. We have to be able to not only try to make achievable housing and not make these, $800,000 units, which would have been the case with a smaller development, so that people can actually afford to buy into our property. And we're trying to kind of help the community feel a part of this, because I know the concern is, hey, if there's not gates on this community, people are going to be parking wherever they want. This is not a free-for-all. Because of the gates in place, this helps control traffic. So we're trying to do a lot of different things. We've adjusted every step of the way. Every meeting we've had, we've made adjustments. And that's why I think we cleared, after everyone, including your staff's involvement in this, the planning process that just recently happened. So we are very open in trying to work with our fellow citizens here in Stillwater.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you all.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak at the public hearing. This time I'll close the public hearing and just comment that really do appreciate everyone that's been here tonight and received several emails as well. This actually is one of the good things from City Council, when we actually get to hear from people who are interested in the decisions that we're trying to make. It's, I promise, a lot harder to make decisions when we have no idea what people think. So we appreciate your participation in the process. Henry, what was the recommendation from Planning Commission on this?
Yes, sir. So Planning Commission recommended a 3-1 vote on June 3rd, 2025, subject to the fence on the west being increased to a minimum of 8 foot, and the fence on the west, the fence on the east being increased to a 7 foot, which brings me to staff recommendation. We recommend a motion to accept Planning Commission recommendation and approve the planned unit development Cowboy Landing for the properties addressed at 1924 and 2002 East McElroy Road, with conditions that include but are not limited to the 2 conditions that were recommended by Planning Commission. The third condition is that 7 foot of right-of-way being dedicated along the north side of McElroy Road, which was something that was discussed by the applicant. That is shown on the plan. The complications there with the easements still to be determined, but that would have to be shown and dedicated on the final plat, which would be brought before you. And the last one is additional conditions as deemed appropriate by City Council. While listening to the concerns and reading through with a different thought process on some of the code, staff is also recommending an additional condition, which is sidewalks being added on at least one side of all of those private streets.
Okay. Councilors, any discussion?
Well, I concur with the mayor and just thank everyone who's come out tonight to speak. I think this is, and I think I've heard Mayor Joyce say this before, this is exactly how city government should work. People should advocate for what their needs are within their neighborhoods, and so I want to thank you all for coming out. As I have heard both sides of this, I would say from my perspective, I think these types of developments are great ideas, and when we look at our community, the community planning and the comprehensive plan, we're looking for ways to have these types of affordable housing, smaller family housing around Stillwater. Now, that said, I understand everybody's thoughts of, and I had this conversation with Mr. Gose, we all think those are great ideas. We don't necessarily want them in our backyards. And so certainly I understand that. And so, you know, as I look at this and the requirements and what the PUD proposes, you know, I am inclined to not support it simply because of the density, quite honestly. But I do like, and I think Dr. Sanders, you mentioned ethical community planning and trying to work to get to a consensus where something can be put in that can meet what you all want and what you can tolerate, as well as what can be a good business decision for the developer. And so, I mean, that's just my thoughts as we go forward and have a motion. Again, I want to thank everybody who has shown up tonight to just voice your opinions and let us know what this means to your neighborhood and your area of town and your community. So
I in a past life, when I first graduated from college 50 years ago, or whatever that was, my first home was a condominium in Kansas City, Missouri. And it was much like this. We had one driveway and one garage. But we did have adequate guest parking. And what happened with that place was the guest spaces were always taken up by residents because they couldn't get their car in the garage. So I recognize that's an issue, and I recognize that's not our problem, that's the developer's problem. But that became a problem for all of us, and then it became a problem as the HOA president. How do you enforce that? And the enforcement of that was not fun. I was not going to call a record and have people towed off. I made a lot of enemies by doing that. But when I hear about this, to me it's a density issue, and the density issue, in my mind, focuses around parking. And I'm concerned about the fire safety part of it. Cars double parked in front of their property could be a problem. Again, not my problem specifically, but enforcement problem, probably for the HOA to enforce that. So that's when I think about the density problem, I come back to the parking issue. That's where I get with parking. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I have the same concerns about parking. Even with 17 additional spots, that's not, in my view, adequate parking for overflow for 42 units. I'm also concerned about the transition from large lots to this very, very dense plan in an old neighborhood. I am concerned, what was the other thing I had here? Oh, the dead end, not having a turnaround for delivery vehicles, not having a turnaround for fire vehicles, ambulances. That is very concerning to me as well.
I actually, sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. I apologize. I'll try not to talk too much.
Allergies.
I actually don't worry about the density so much. I'm grateful that somebody is thinking about density in our community. It's something that in order to provide affordable housing, we're going to have to start getting more comfortable with in our community. And I appreciate that somebody's considering affordable housing because it's something, it's a big part of the conversations out in our community right now. And it isn't just for students, it's for families and young people and single people that would love to own a home and we don't have the proper housing stock here in Stillwater to provide that. I do have some concerns around I think transition, Councilor Clark, is maybe the same concern that I have when we have a larger lot development moving immediately into this dense area. A lot of times I am an urban planner, that's what I do in my real life, but a lot of times what we like to see ideally if we were master planning that community would be those large lots coming to a small lot, coming to a more dense development. And so here kind of having this this PUD, which again, and Mr. Bartley, to your point, I really also value the PUD process. It's much preferable, I think, to just rezoning and not really understanding or having an opportunity to input and have a say on what those developments look like. But I do have some concern about the transition of this very dense area against these larger lot developments. I did take a moment to drive out there just to get an understanding and a better sense of that space. It's hard sometimes when you're looking at aerial maps and developments to do that. And I do think that could be a challenge in this area, not because of density, but because of that transition.
Yeah, I think I would agree with a lot of those comments, right? I think that mainly with the one about we need to start finding places to put these kinds of developments in Stillwater. We have to. As Mr. Lucy said, it is very expensive to build homes. It's getting more expensive every day, and we don't have enough homes in Stillwater. And so to find places to build homes where we can have entry-level units, if you're a young family, if you're a new professional, if you just graduated from OSU and you want to buy a house in Stillwater on your entry-level salary, it is almost impossible, if not entirely impossible, to find a place that you can afford in the city of Stillwater. And so you buy a house outside of the city of Stillwater, out in the country somewhere, or in another town. And, there's people around here who are fine with that, and I understand that. But I think if we want our community to grow and to be able to support new industry, if we want our community to support growth in our university, we have to find places to build housing like this. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I'm not sure this is the right place. I'm not sure this is the right plan to do that. And it's very difficult for me. I've gone back and forth about this 4 times tonight about how I would really want to see this, because I do think we need this development in Stillwater. I think it's difficult, certainly the abrupt transition. It's, I go back and forth though, because just on the other side of this to the east, it's zone commercial.
Yes.
And they could build a very large, very impactful development on that commercial lot right on the corner, and this would be a much better transition to the large lot single family than something else would be. So, you know, it is a difficult call to say. I said earlier, it's easier when we get people's input. That doesn't mean it's easy. And I don't know what can be done with this specifically. If it is, I certainly appreciate the recommendation around sidewalks, the comments that were made around, sort of making sure if we want, young families to be able to buy these are not necessarily well suited to young families either. And so there's just some challenges to try to figure out if we were going to put something like this, certainly in this spot. This one just doesn't feel like it's a great fit. Now, I hate to hear myself say it, honestly, because I feel like we say that, and people, anybody, again, I mean, you're right, if this was 2 houses down from me, I would probably be feeling similarly to most of you here, but at the same time, we as a community have to recognize and become more comfortable with the fact that there needs to be a change in the way we do housing, and we need to recognize that just because there's a lot of houses in an area doesn't mean it's bad. Just because they're rentals doesn't mean it's bad. Just because there might be a short-term rental doesn't mean it's a bad thing. We have a lot of nice short-term rentals around here, and I don't really know where to go with that because I'm not sure. I can't wrap my head around this particular PUD being right for this area, but I want it to be, I guess is the best way to say that. And I don't really know. My understanding, if we were to make a decision on this and to deny it, there's a question of what the developer might be able to do and how long, if there's a moratorium or not. I'm going to let the city attorney maybe weigh in a little bit on what a moratorium might look like for.
It just depends. There is the reapplication moratorium provision does have a section that's specific to planned unit developments. So if this application were denied this evening, if there were to be a new application, it would have to be reviewed to determine if the new application for the planned unit development will permit substantially the same use as the previously denied one. And that initial determination is made by the Development Services Director, and it is appealable to the Board of Adjustment.
So if there were significant changes in maybe some of the buffers or some of the density or whatever it is that it potentially could come back and not be seen as the same.
That we determined didn't permit substantially the same use as the previous one, then it would be permissible for reapplication.
What are our options around tabling?
So everyone's identified a lot of issues. You can table the item before taking action on it, and that would, you could direct staff, planning staff, or the applicant to address some of your identified issues, and you could bring it back to a date certain and make a decision at that time.
Would the addition of sidewalks change? Is there room right now with the way the site plan is designed to? Would that change make an initial impact to the density based on that change alone?
I mean, just the straight addition of sidewalks would affect that parking that's in the front. So we'd have to, in the front of each unit, because we have the garage and then the surface space. So we'd have to look at how that impacts. I can't directly answer that right now, so.
Sidewalks are likely to hit the midway through a car. Is that what you're saying?
Or at least the trunk, yeah. Depending on where we put it. If we put it at the back of curb, and a sidewalk's going to be at least 4 foot wide. So, and those are 20-foot front yards right now. So it knocked, that down to 16 feet.
Well, counselors, I don't really know I think there would need to be some fairly significant alterations to the plan, and so I think it may be best to just make a decision on this plan as it sits and have them, if they'd like to come back with a significantly different one, we could do that. I don't know if the applicant has
I mean, we'd like to request tabling it to a date certain so we can work through some of these issues and work with staff and see if we can come up with something that we feel and they feel addresses the concerns that have been voiced tonight.
Counselors, anybody have thoughts on that?
So we would make a motion to table it?
Yeah, to it.
I would recommend to table it to a date certain,
Is-
at the schedule of regular meetings.
Does a month give you enough time to do whatever it is you want to do, Stephen?
If you tabled it for 2 meetings, the date would be July 21st.
Yeah, I was just looking that up.
And the developer would like to request the next available meeting if we, yeah, and we try to work with staff and see if we can get there in time.
So just to be
July
clear,
7th.
just to be clear, also we have a lot of the neighborhood here tonight.
Right.
What this would look like. So if we table, that would mean they would come back in a meeting similar to this one with the opportunity for public hearing.
They could come for public comment, but it would not be another public hearing. We've already held the public hearing. It's been closed. It would come up as a general business item for you to make a decision at the next meeting. But certainly citizens are able to comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. They are afforded 3 minutes of speaking time.
So you're saying July 7th with the holiday in between is enough time?
So if we're looking at
To the mic, please.
the dates, just considering the all-day in place to our side, work diligently, and I don't want to put any more pressure into the city because we've already put enough pressure under the city. So if we could do the next available one after the 7th.
It'd be the 21st.
21st.
Okay, that's a month from now,
Okay.
roughly, a little more than that.
It is the 21st.
Thank you all.
All right, and then I move table this until July 21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table this item until July 21st. Please vote. The vote of 5-0, this item is tabled until our meeting on July 21st. All right. You absolutely can be here to comment on the 21st. We'll have public comment. It's just a different format slightly because it's not a public hearing technically, but you would be able to come here and speak on the 21st as well.
So was this a public hearing?
Yes, it was.
So how come we can't vote now and let him make his decision?
Sir,
we have already voted.
We've made a decision for tonight on this item. We can speak to you afterwards. We're going to continue with our city council meeting tonight. Thank you. Item 7, general orders. Stillwater Area Sports Association presentation from Carolyn Walstead.
Hello. I brought concession goodies. I'm here to bring happiness regarding SASA, a public-private partnership with the city of Stillwater. So let me get my presentation.
You want some?
It's not online.
Plain or peanut? Plain M&M. Peanut M&M's for Teresa. Yeah, it's not. There we go.
Escape. Escape.
I'll share.
All right, who got the peanut M&Ms?
Teresa.
This half of the table. There we go. All right, good evening. I'm Carolyn Walstead, and I'm proud to be the Executive Director of SASA, Stillwater Area Sports Association. We are a public-private partnership with the City of Stillwater.
Time out, 1 second.
Come
Pass these around for the people who've been sitting around too long.
Those that are still here, yes.
And thank
Bribery right here.
Thank you for the treat.
You're so welcome. Here's my pitch. We had a perfect opening night this year. The weather was nice. Here's just some of those fun faces that you guys help support through SASA. We were honored to be a part and to help serve the city when we had the fire through the Stillwater Strong. Again, it was humbling to walk in and see the amount that was donated, and outside to see the cars, the 20 cars, 2 ways that were the city of Stillwater coming to donate. We have adult softball, so any of you that played in your youth, if you'd like to do something in the evenings, it's a fun recreational activity. We host United Way pickleball tournaments. I have 3 pickleball courts in the gym. They're used every day from 9 to noon. So here's just some league information. I'm keeping under my 5 minutes. So we have softball teams, adult volleyball teams. We're currently in tennis lessons. I have pickleball that comes into the SASA Armory Gym Monday through Friday, 9 to noon. We have youth softball, K-ball, T-ball, and baseball, 2 seasons, spring and fall. We have flag football in the fall. And then we also have youth basketball that is our winter sport. The library was going under some renovations, and so they came in and used the gym twice a week. We host Lincoln Academy for their physical education classes twice a week. They come to the gym. My league participation, so this just kind of gives you an idea of where our numbers are. If you see the zeros, it's because our flag football hasn't happened yet for 2025, and the zeros also are youth basketball, which is our winter sport. So we're right on par for what we've had in the past. We did, for 2024-25 seasons, we were fully or partially sponsored 273 youth to play in our leagues, whether it be K-ball, T-ball, softball, baseball, flag football, or our youth basketball. Community service, because our coaches are volunteers, we have over 400 amazing coaches and assistant coaches that help volunteering and dedicating to our Stillwater youth. This is one of our 10 and under kid pitch teams that went to Our Daily Bread and helped serve. Senior softball league, it's 55 and up, so you can join that. I have adult women's league that plays on Tuesday nights. We play 3 seasons. And then we have co-ed spike that plays on Monday nights. Lots of fun in the gym. Proud partner with Simmons. They host a mid-season tournament for all of our league teams when rain prevents us. Tournaments, here's the negative part of it. My tournaments are down quite a bit because of the rain. April 4th, 5th, and 6th, I had 103 teams. It was completely rained out. We had our baseball Simmons League tournament. We had 42 teams that had committed to play. It was rained out. I had my U-Trip state tournament last weekend. It was rained out. That's 27 teams. We had one tournament that we actually were able to play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. All the rest we had to combine to one tournament over one day. So, happy note, Stillwater Gear Exchange, we presented that last year. It's kind of for parents that have equipment, slightly used equipment. They can bring it to the SASA office. We have it downstairs that they can bring things, and then when a player needs something, they can come and shop and get it. It's been used quite a bit. It's amazing. And the kids are so excited to bring what they got last year back and then to come to get more items. This is really what my spring season's been like. I'm trying to be all happy, but it has been a struggle. But when you have ducks in the outfield, that's my life. This was after our Saturday morning. There was like 13% chance of rain and came down, and I think we got 1.5 inches that night. So that has been the struggle. So here's our tournament numbers are down. Last year we had almost 4,000 participants, and this year we've had 2,400. Tennis is happening now. These are some happy faces. Very excited. We partner with OSU. Braden Young, Chris Young's son, is my director, and occasionally, quite often, the OSU tennis players will come and show up at the courts and do the lesson with Braden. But that's at the couch tennis courts, Monday through Thursday. We offer 3 sessions. And our gross, this is just the gross income, it's not the expense. And of course, the city allocation is 216, but we've only received the 2, so that's where the difference is. Go ahead. Yeah, no.
This is calendar year, correct?
That is correct.
Thank
That
you.
is full calendar years, yes.
Thank you.
And we're very thankful for the SPS partnership that we have with the city. They use our baseball fields. Lincoln comes to the academy. They use the tennis courts that the city provides. And in turn, we're allowed to use the basketball for the elementary gyms for our basketball season. That's the only way that we could host 76 teams. And we also get to play on Stillwater, on the turf. I will say the turf because when it rains out, we can still play on turf. We do host a holiday ratings. Last year we hosted it at the high school, and it's on the books to happen again. And we are happy to assist the Special Olympics. We use the airport fields, and that is just a completely special time. Partner with OSU through the SASA teams. They scrimmage at the OSU Cowgirl games, the men's game. I have tennis instructors. We get discount wrestling tickets and baseball tickets. 3 of my tournaments partner when OSU's home, and when my 103 team tournament was canceled, 53 of those teams had tickets to OSU game. So there's a direct correlation with what I bring in town, how the benefit of the city also. Youth activities, this is just kind of interesting. If you look at the number of participants, practices in an 8-week season, that's how many activities that SASA, the city of Stillwater, are providing for the youth and around. It's a pretty impressive number. We mow 35 acres. That's what our park mows. So just a day in the gym, and we have walkers that is reserved from 8 to 9. Then we have 3 courts of pickleball from 9 to noon. Then we have men's league unofficially. We have several of them, the men that come in and play from 12 to 1:30. Then it's open gym from 1:30 to 5. In the evenings, there's usually somebody in there, whether it be youth basketball, adult volleyball, or a venue that we've rented for parties. Capital investment, so this is what my balance sheet shows as far as for our mowers, the equipment, the trailers, $273,000. And then this past year for 2024-25, we spent $82,000 on field improvements, portable mounds, L screens, just equipment for the season. There was $6,000 of it is my turfus, and it didn't show. So for those that are mathematically inclined, if you add those, you're $6,000 short, and that $6,000 is my turfus that did not make the slide. Economic impact. So I got this from the city of Stillwater when we began 12 years ago. I've not changed the numbers, so I'm as far as the $75 or the $200 for the 2 days. I did kind of change it from the 70% because most of our tournaments went to a 1-day tournament, so instead of the 2 nights, spending the night. So we're down, I think last year, we were like 2.3 million as estimated as an impact. So again, my tournaments make a direct impact to the economic impact of Stillwater in a positive way. So we've started promoting the Armory as a party venue. We can do pickleball, volleyball, basketball, dodgeball, kickball, Nerf. This was a glow-in-the-dark pickleball party. We've done family get-togethers, baby showers, holiday functions, because a family didn't have enough space for their holiday gatherings, so they used the Armory gym. And we provide the athletic equipment, tables, chairs, sounds, ice, and you're allowed to bring food and non-alcoholic beverages in. So it's rented usually 3 times a week with parties. It's a popular venue.
Is this the first year you've done that?
It's really, I've started really promoting it. We've always kind of rented it out when somebody's called, but the word's gotten out now, and so lots of parties are in there. But I have a wonderful board, and I'm very thankful for their support. my wish list, usually Mayor Joyce always says, well, what good? If I had a seven, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. But I promised to, if you would build it, they will come. The only tournaments that played were the ones that were on turf field. People love to come to Stillwater, but if you can play on turf and be guaranteed to play, or come to Stillwater and know that we're in the spring and it's going to rain. Granted, this season has been the absolute worst, other than the flood, when we had the flood. But if anywhere budget, I promise they will come and it will pay for itself. That's it. Thanks. I'm out. Any questions?
Carolyn, I just wanted to say thank you
You're
for all the work that you do, not only with SASA, but particularly for the work that you did during the wildfire relief. We just invaded your space, and you were so gracious and so willing to jump in, and it was hard. It was traumatic. Our community was in need, and those were the people that were knocking on your door every day, and we're just grateful that they had your friendly face to greet them and to support them while they were shopping through all the goods that our community donated. I just want you to know how grateful we are.
Thank you. It was a humbling experience, but I can assure you that they were much better when they walked out.
And just thank you for being a continued advocate for health and wellness and athletics. And I think in addition to just the exercise that kids can get and adults, sports just teaches kids so much about teamwork and self-confidence. And so thank you for your continued advocacy for that.
I absolutely agree. It's much more than just winning and losing.
Yep.
So back to the turf question.
Yes.
So yes, I recognize that that's an issue here, but there's a lot of communities now that are building new facilities with turf.
Absolutely.
Are we beginning to get behind the power?
Yeah, we're behind. We're behind on that. We're losing teams to Oklahoma City, Bigsby, Midwest City, Edmond is now. But the only thing, the hook that we have is people love coming to Stillwater, but we are losing our numbers because they can play on turf.
What's a turf field cost?
The infield's about $98,000. That's to go in and redo what we would have. It is a little cheaper if you're building a new one completely. And I really think that turf, the infields would be enough. Most of them, if you're putting them in new as turf for the infields, you can drain the outfields out so that they could recover. They're not going to recover from a 3.5-inch rain, but they are going to recover from an inch rain.
So if you had turf infields, would you been able to play the
Yes.
tournaments that you canceled this
The
year?
ones that played, the only ones that were playing in the state are the ones that had turf infields and or outfields.
Okay.
I know. Don't end on a negative note. I really appreciate our partnership.
Carolyn, you guys are doing a fantastic job with facilities that aren't up to the par that we see in some of our neighboring communities, for sure. And we need, as a community, we've got some. When we passed the visitors tax a couple years ago, we added that 30% on to say we need to spend this on amenities, facilities. This ball fields is certainly one of the things that's been identified as the biggest, probably the most impactful use of that money. And we just need to get to the point where we, make something happen. And so, whether it's building a whole new complex, which is a whole process and a difficult thing to do, if it's just figuring out how to put turf on our existing baseball fields and softball fields, that may be something that we need to look at too. So
I really do appreciate your volunteering really to sit on this council and to hear all this, but if you ever need to know that you're doing some great things, just come to the Strickland Park on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday evening and see all the people in the park and the kids having fun and the parking lot packed and Mexico Joe's packed after the games. It's
try to go to Brahms after that.
Yes. for sure.
Thanks,
But
Carolyn.
Thank you for your time. Oh. Thank you.
Item 8 is resolutions. 8A, Resolution CC-2025-10, a resolution establishing the Stillwater Regional Airport fiscal year 2025-2026 rates and charges schedule.
So this resolution is establishing the fiscal year 25-26 rates and charges schedule for Stillwater Regional Airport. The Stillwater Regional Airport Advisory Board has reviewed and approved the proposed schedule. The only change from the current schedule is to establish a consumer price index or a CPI adjustment that is applicable to leases and other agreements. The airport is currently conducting a rates and charges study, which should be completed in, I believe, December. And at that time, based on findings or recommendations of the study, additional changes may be presented for future consideration. Airport Director Kelly Reed is here if you have other questions.
Councilors, any questions? Is there a motion on the resolution?
Motion to adopt resolution CC-2025-10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, resolution CC-2025-10 is adopted. Item B is resolution CC 2025-11, a resolution of the City of Stillwater, Oklahoma, approving an additional $150,000 allocation to the small business enhancement category under the implementation policy guide and authorizing and directing the city manager, city staff, special counsel for economic development, and 2 members of the implementation policy committee selected by the city manager to propose amendments to the implementation policy guide, all in furtherance of achieving the objectives set forth in the Stillwater Reinvestment Plan, a Downtown Campus Link project plan, and increment district number 3, City of Stillwater.
So in reviewing applications for financing assistance, staff recognized a need to review the allocations to financing categories and the implementation policy guide. So staff worked with CEDL, which is our special counsel for economic development, to discuss best path forward for changes to both the financing categories and the implementation policy guide. So these changes were discussed with the Implementation Policy Committee at its last meeting. The TIF3 Implementation Policy Committee has expressed support for amendments to the policy guide, and the Implementation Policy Committee also voted to recommend approving the additional allocation of $150,000 to the small business enhancement category of assistance. So approval of this resolution will authorize and approve the following. Any previous amendments made to the Implementation Policy Guide approved by SEDA are ratified. $150,000 of the $5 million assistance and development financing project cost budget item of the project plan is allocated to the small business enhancement category, which enables SEDA to fund additional eligible applications. And finally, it also authorizes and directs the city manager, city staff, special counsel for economic development, and 2 members of the Implementation Policy Committee as selected by the city manager to propose further amendments to the Implementation Policy Guide to clarify funding terms, evaluation criteria, application and approval procedures, development agreement provisions, to improve formatting, structure, overall usability, and to recommend such other revisions as may be appropriate. The guide needs some work.
It's been in place for a few years now, so
Yes.
we've actually seen how it works, and
It was
it
time.
makes sense to see some changes. Councilors,
I move adoption of resolution CC 2025-11.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, resolution CC-2025-11 is adopted. Item 9 is ordinances, and I realize that our guests from earlier in the evening are still here because they're waiting on this item, and I apologize about that.
Education over here.
Item 9A is on first reading is ordinance 3572, an ordinance closing an alley right-of-way abutting properties located at 1101 and 1123 West University Avenue, 221 South Lincoln, and 206 South Monroe Streets.
Motion to advance ordinance number 3572 to second read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the ordinance 3572 is advanced to second reading. We will skip ordinance 3573. That was tabled for a later meeting. Ordinance, on second read, we have ordinance 3568, an ordinance amending the Stillwater Code of Ordinances, Chapter 35, Stormwater Quality and Management, Article 1, in general, Section 35-1 definitions, Chapter 35, Stormwater Quality and Management, Article 2, Drainage and Sedimentation, Division 1 generally, Section 35-25, Impairment of Drainage Facilities, repealing all ordinances to the contrary and providing for severability.
So as you may recall, the next two second read ordinances are both related to drainage and improving our enforcement. Zach Henson is here. He's going to give a report, and I believe there's a show.
A show.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We appreciate you staying this long. I will try to be as brief as I can here. Let's see. Trying to bring up our website here just so that we have it in queue ready to go. Okay, so we basically just wanted to clarify that any of the changes that we're making to both of these ordinances are not adding any regulations to our current residences or our property owners. These are to clarify existing regulations that we've had in place. The wording was a little vague in the previous iteration of this ordinance, and it included the words maintenance, but some people view maintenance as, you know, I might view it one way, somebody else views it another way, so we wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page. So we clarified what that actually means, no obstructions in the drainage easements, things of that nature. We also kind of added additional language for the enforcement procedures. Those enforcement procedures were already in Chapter 35. They were a little bit lower in the section, and so we kind of put them all together in one spot so that anybody looking for these drainage easements can, or I'm sorry, the language regarding drainage easements can find it all in one location. I'm not sure where this website is. I tried to bring it up. I don't know. We did create a short video. It's about 1.5 minutes as a request for the education component that was requested during the first read. If you want to see that tonight, we can play it. If you're a little burned out and ready to move forward, you can feel free to view it at your own leisure. It's attached to our website. It's on the YouTube channel. So, yeah, there we go.
What's another 1.5 minutes? We got it.
Okay. Yeah, your call, definitely. We've got it queued up in the back. I'll just briefly show you the website here. The communications team did an excellent job with this. We knew we wanted an education component for the drainage ordinance update, and they went all out and did a component for the entire stormwater program for us. So we've got this nice little mascot here, Dash the Duck. Kids love mascots. We've done a great job. I say we. They have done a great job of updating this website. I can't take any credit for it. So we've got a lot of information on here. This is pertaining to the ordinance updates that we're currently looking at. And I believe Eric was in the back, and he was going to play it from the back rather than playing it through this. So Eric, if you can hear us, feel free to start that video.
There he goes.
Like magic.
Every time it rains, stormwater needs a place to go. Without a clear path, it can lead to dangerous roadway ponding and flash flooding. That's why the city is launching a safety initiative to help keep our drainage routes clear and working as they should. These routes include everything from underground storm drains and street gutters to grass-lined ditches, concrete channels, and even natural creeks and tributaries that haven't been altered by construction. Maintaining these systems is critical, especially in our neighborhoods, to prevent flooding and protect our community. When a problem is identified, like a blocked drainage route, the city will notify the property owner and ask for their help in resolving the issue. Any drainage facility located on private property, whether there's an easement present or not, is the property owner's responsibility. The city of Stillwater will maintain any drainage facilities located on public properties, parks, or within right-of-ways. We believe in working together with residents and businesses to find effective solutions. But when an issue goes unresolved, the city may need to take further steps. This can include issuing a citation, or in some cases, addressing the problem directly with costs potentially passed on to the property owner. If you have questions, we're here to help. Please give us a call or email me at zach.henson@stillwaterok.gov. Together, we can keep our community safe, dry, and prepared, rain or shine.
Okay, so that was one component of the educational materials. They've also got several social media posts that you may have seen going out this week. Those are going to continue. We will continue developing kind of an FAQ section, myths and misconceptions. And of course, we've got some color sheets for kids because everybody loves those. Adults love them too. So thank you again to the communications team. I think they made me look decent in that video, which is pretty difficult to do. So I'm here to answer any questions if there's anything else I can help clear up about the ordinance update or just information in general.
I think it's really great, the education component to that. I think sometimes we make decisions in here that don't always it's hard to communicate out to the public, and I think doing something like a video and providing for social media is just a great opportunity to help bring the community along with us.
Yeah, well done.
All right, thank you.
Will there be action on the second read of 3568?
I move adoption of ordinance 3568.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 3568. Please vote.
Oh, sorry.
Ordinance is adopted with a vote of 5-0. Ordinance 3569 on second read, an ordinance amending Stillwater's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Environment, Article 3, Miscellaneous Nuisances, Division 1 generally, Section 18-71, Public Nuisances designated, repealing all ordinances to the contrary and providing for severability. Councilors.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3569.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. Ordinance 3569 is adopted with a vote of 5-0. Item C is ordinance number 3571, an ordinance to rezone 1002 South Husband Street from two-family residential to commercial business.
I move to adopt ordinance 3571.
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. Ordinance 3571 is adopted with a vote of 5-0. Reports from the officers and the board. Ms. Carnley?
Nothing.
Mr. Moore?
We have fun learning and networking events in Stillwater for friends of all ages this summer. Please check out the Stillwater Public Library for information about their summer reading program. We have the summer cinema at the community center and so much more. Also, our programming for the senior center activities has grown exponentially with art and dance classes, guitar lessons, Zumba, card games, and many other great activities. You can find out all this information if you go to stillwaterok.gov and click on the calendar for weekly activities.
Lots of stuff to do. Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Yes, I wanted to give just a quick update and encouragement and actually ask everyone in this room, when you see these come out on our social media for the city, to please share. We recently, in the last month, found out that FEMA was coming in to support wildfire relief from our March event. And we're encouraging all homeowners and renters affected by those March wildfires or the straight line winds to apply for federal assistance through the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Small Business Association, even if you have insurance. We learned this morning in a briefing with FEMA and SBA that in Payne County, only 55% of eligible residents have applied for FEMA assistance. They would really like to be at 75% at least before they leave from their on-site presence. And we also learned today that their on-site presence at Meridian, we only have several more days. So their last day in Stillwater for FEMA at the Meridian Technology Center will be Wednesday, June 18th. Their last in-person office hours are tomorrow, June 17th, and Wednesday, June 18th, from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And really what we learned is, regardless of your insurance situation, FEMA has the ability to come in and potentially meet any of those gaps that we might have for families that have been impacted, whether that's in their insurance deductibles or some of their personal property. It also can apply for automobiles. We had a lot of people out at Lake McMurtry that lost campers, so potentially they could apply for funding there. But it really helps just make sure that everyone in our community is accessing as many of those resources as possible. I think us as a city, we want our neighbors and friends to stay here in Stillwater, to rebuild with us in our neighborhoods, and accessing these dollars is the best way to make that happen.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Councilor Hawkins.
Save the date and celebrate Independence Day with Stillwater's 31st Boomer Blast Fireworks Show on Friday, July 4th at Boomer Lake Park. Festivities will kick off at 6:30 p.m. with food trucks, music, and more. The fireworks show will begin around 9:30 p.m. For those who prefer not to attend the event in person but would like to watch the fireworks show, it will be streamed live on the City of Stillwater Facebook page and YouTube channel. The city will continue to share event details on social media and on our website at stillwaterok.gov/boomerblast. Happy Independence Day, America.
Just a couple of weeks away.
Couple of weeks away.
Councilor Clark.
Well, believe it or not, Crazy Days begins 1 month from today. It's our largest community-wide retail event. A lot of times we think about it being downtown and Campus Corner. This is a citywide event. Businesses today all over town are participating, so please get out and get involved in it. Also, the Crazy Days Ring Registers promotion giveaway. It runs the entire month of July. You can find details both about Crazy Days and the Ring Registers promotion at visitstillwater.org.
Excellent. Time to go shopping. Councilor Harden.
As the temperatures get warmer, we encourage residents to utilize our mini parks and 2 water play areas. The splash pads are in Boomer Lake Park and Southern Woods Park. Both splash pads are free to use, open daily from 10 to 8, and are only closed during times of inclement weather and maintenance. While we're out enjoying the parks, please remember to do our part to keep them clean and safe by using the trash bins. So grab your sunscreen, bring the kids, and let's splash into summer.
Excellent. I will remind everyone that this weekend, this week is Juneteenth. City Hall's closed Thursday, right, for Juneteenth. But this weekend, Stillwater Community United will be celebrating Juneteenth at Southern Woods Park on Saturday, June 21st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. All community members are invited to gather for games, music, free food and drink, and entertainment for the whole family. For more information, go to visitstillwater.org/SWO Community United. Oh, also, City Hall will be closed in observance of Juneteenth on Thursday, June 19th. Jumped ahead of myself. Trash, recycling, and yard waste will be collected as usual. First of all, the Juneteenth celebration is always a great time. If you're around on Saturday, come down. It's the Stillwater Community United does a great job of planning really an intentional community event. Lots of opportunities to meet new folks, interact with other people here in Stillwater. So I would definitely encourage you to be there for the Juneteenth on June 21st. I also want to just throw in there that I know I and a couple of other councilors up here over the last couple of weeks have gotten a chance to go walk through Block 34 and sort of see the progress on the construction. If you have not driven by Block 34 in the last few weeks, you won't believe how much progress has been made. All the landscaping is going in. I assume we'll see sod and grass going down fairly quickly. July 26th is grand opening during Dancing Turtle down there. So I'm just so super excited about what that is going to be, and look forward to seeing everybody down at Block 34 at the end of July.
And I believe it's going to remain completely closed until July 26th, so the turf can establish itself.
Yes, it will. Yeah, when there's a fence up, please don't go in there and try to get in early, because we're going to have a short growing window to get that turf established, and but it is super exciting and just really an unbelievable level of detail and quality in what's been built down there at Block 34. So excellent work to the team on that one. Anything further? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn the city council meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council meeting is now adjourned. Anybody need a break, or do you want to go into the next?
Let's go.
This time I will call to order the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting for June 16th, 2025. Consent docket, trustees.
Motion to accept. Oh,
go for it.
Motion to accept consent docket.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. Under item 5, general orders, we'll have the Waste Management 2025 Solid Waste Study presented by New Gen Strategies and Matt Faulkner.
Good evening, trustees. A little closer here. Pull up this presentation. Once again, good evening, trustees. Matt Faulkner, Waste Management Director. So as part of Waste Management Strategic Plan, we perform a solid waste study every 5 years. Our first study took place in 2020, where New Gen Strategy Solutions LLC evaluated our operational efficiency, cost of service, rate design, and ordinance review. In addition to that original project scope, we had a recycling task force to determine the future of the city's recycling program. Fast forward to now, August 5th, 2024, where New Gen Strategies was awarded the contract to perform the 2025 solid waste study, in which they reevaluated Waste Management's collection operations, cost of service, rate design, and ordinance review. As of right now, a final draft report has been done, and a final report will be submitted once determinations have been made on rate design or ordinance change, if any. Today's presentation from New Gen Strategies will be focused on their findings of now and be mostly related to cost of service and rate design. There will be no actions on any recommendations in this presentation today. It's merely informational. Staff will return at a later date for recommendations. So, without further ado, we have Dave Yonke from New Gen Strategies, and we'll be here for questions.
Good evening. Glad to be here. I am going to go fairly quickly through this. You've had a long night, and there's a basketball game tonight, I think. So,
You're going to go home and watch it from the beginning.
yeah, that's good. So, I'm going to jump right into this. So, again, our scope. I'll hit the highlights. Seriously, though, if you have more questions as you go through on this, please don't hesitate to stop, and I'll go into a lot more detail. So we had 4 specific key tasks. Again, as Matt mentioned, operational assessment, evaluate some potential new services. I will talk about that in a second. And then conduct an update to the cost of service study. Also an ordinance review. Just key findings, I'm going to hit these very briefly. The recycling transfer station, it's a pretty straightforward operation where your materials are taken, Republic processes them. The only thing we really saw when we were out there and we were in the field 3 days, there might be the benefit of potentially using tandem trailers to move the compactors. Again, it's not a material item though that's going to be significant savings. Right now, it makes sense to stay with Republic on that right now. I mean, if your recyclables were to increase significantly, like another 50%, it might make sense, but nothing to do there. Bottom line, your city collection center, it's a very efficient operation. It's on a small footprint. There's a lot of material that goes through there, but well run. One thing we would recommend is a potential cardboard baling operation there. We've talked with Matt about that and looked at it. There'd be a potential about $76,000 in cost savings and revenue if you were to do that, because right now that material is getting commingled with the other mixed recyclables. So it's like you get it collected, you know, in a nice single stream, and then you throw it in with all the mixed stuff, and then it gets hauled to Tulsa. So
what would the capital investment be to invest in the baler?
it's basically a baler, getting a baler for that site. So that can vary on the type, if it's a vertical, horizontal, but it's not a significant, well, I won't say it's insignificant, 50 to 100 grand, but balers, you could spend more, but balers can last decades when you take care of them.
Okay.
With regard to bulky collection, the way you do it on call, it's the best way to do it. No changes there at all. Commercial dumpster, this is one of the areas. This was something Matt had mentioned to us that was in the scope. We've done this for other cities. It makes sense to look at moving from rear load to front load dumpster collection. The reason for that, front load dumpsters, 6 cubic yard, 8 cubic yard dumpsters, you pick those up with the front forks, so you can pick up bigger dumpsters. Typically on a back end rear load, you can only do 2 to 4 cubic yard dumpsters, so you can pick up more garbage with each lift. There's also, you don't have to have as many folks with the spotter on the back. Quite frankly, front loaders are safer also. So that's something, and there's interest potentially with OSU contracting with the city if you had front load dumpsters, because that's what they have.
So that would require new dumpsters and new trucks.
Yes, it would. And that's one of the things we did in the analysis, and it's laid out, the purchase of the trucks, the purchase of the dumpsters, the amortization of all that. And with that said, you're looking at probably conservatively $250,000 to $300,000 cost savings there.
But the front load cannot dump our current dumpsters.
Correct. They cannot. And now one of the things we'll recommend, it's in the report and talk, you lease your equipment on a 3-year period. So it's not something you can just go do right now. You've kind of got to go through the life cycle with your equipment. So there's a good opportunity there for you, and it's laid out in the report.
Thank you.
Let's see, those were the key items. Ordinance review, nothing major here, just cleanup, with regard to, it's been 5 years, some of the terminology, et cetera. Nothing major though. So cost of service, that's the next item. So again, I had mentioned operational assessment. I touched on those highlights. Now I want to get into the cost of service. I'm going to skip this. This is just the process. I will, and you can't see that, I apologize. You do offer a lot of services. There are 17 different services starting on the left side. Just sometimes people kind of forget everything they do. But you've got your residential refuse, yard waste, bulky, garbage, and then commercial, you've got the dumpsters, roll-offs, the list goes on. So we've got that. Those are the service categories we're going to come up with for the cost of service. Also, just so you know where you stand from a reserve standpoint, beginning of fiscal year 2025, so almost a year ago, 11 months ago, you had about 3.7 million in there. You have a goal of keeping a minimum of $1 million balance, which is good. There is a plan to draw down some of those reserves. The parking lot at the fleet services needs to be, it's bad. It needs to be upgraded. And then purchasing some non-leased equipment, such as pickups, et cetera. Okay, this is busy, but let me just walk you through this. And the only line you really have to focus on is rates have not been raised for a while, and so you're under recovering. What we are going to recommend, I'll just tell you bottom line, is phasing in rate increases, okay? That will allow you're going to use some of these reserves so you don't have to do a big rate increase all at once. So you will draw down on some of the reserves. Just a few key things I want to point out here. The bar chart, if you look at them going down, the one on the far left, the green one, that is the biggest one. That's your residential services. That's where you're under recovering significantly. So that's it.
Just out of curiosity, do I understand this correctly, that the only one that we're over recovering on is street sweeping?
Yep. You're
How
reading
do we over recover on street sweeping?
You're just modestly, you've got your fee at the $2 and change.
Okay.
And you're just,
Got it.
We're covering our costs.
Yeah, you're covering your costs very
Just
modestly.
curious.
No, feel free to ask questions. That's good. You're reading the bar chart. So
That's what she does.
But in FY25 on the yellow line, you're expected to under recover 675 grand. In FY26, and again, this is assuming no rate increases, you don't do anything, you're going to under recover 965 grand, and so that would continue. Okay. So we're going to be recommending some rate increases. Here's some good news. So your current rates on a 96 gallon right now, $21.20. Let me just tell you, we're going to talk about, I'll talk about it more, some of the proposed rate increases. You still are positioned very well versus other cities. We're working with a number of these cities here that are going to be looking at rate increases, so I'll talk about that in a second. But you can see you're right in the middle at 2120. One of the things we also did was look at commercial dumpsters. That's a little harder to do because you have a rate matrix. So what you do is we look at what's your cost. Once we've done all the cost of service, we look at what does it cost you to operate those garbage trucks based on how many cubic yards of capacity you're picking up on dumpsters, size, frequency, etc. You're coming in at $4.95 per cubic yard, which again is real good in that range. These are the challenges. Again, I was here 4 or 5 years ago when I presented the last solid waste one, and then that was right towards the end of COVID. I think I did the presentation in mask and the chairs were all separated. Just a little real quick funny aside, when I heard that you had this PUD thing going on. When I was here last time, 4 or 5 years ago, you were doing the Airbnb one. So if we're selected in another 5 years, someone else is coming from New Gen. I'm not joking. I'm retiring. But in all seriousness, some of the key challenges we've seen in the last 3-4 years, equipment costs, I'm going to show you something real quick on a slide, staffing with CDLs, and then inflation. Just a quick little soundbite we dealt with. We had a client in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They were actually taking over commercial collection from Republic. They had to buy 1,600 dumpsters, front-load dumpsters. They worked with the firm out of Durant. Oh, yeah, great guys. Steel prices were so volatile, they quoted prices for the dumpsters, and they were good for a week. We saw the cost of steel go from, in about a 6-month period, right when Ukraine got invaded, it went from 20 cents to 80 cents, and then back down to 40 cents. But just crazy. That's just one example. Here are the CPIs, just real quick. If you look at those different CPIs, the top 3 over the last 5 years, 4.2 to 5.7. Equipment purchases, those are what you're seeing, and they're considerably higher. Those are 8 to 16%. And I wish I could say it's just Stillwater. We've seen this across the board. 5 years ago, you were able to buy automated side loaders for about $350,000. We work with Tucson and Phoenix. And I don't know why theirs are always more expensive over there, but they're over $500,000 for an automated side loader. So it's expensive. So there are some recommendations we're making with regard to rates. We are recommending, and again, I'll go through these in a second, show you what they are, a percentage increase in the existing rates that you have. And then bottom line, under the third green one, we're going to recommend some rate structure changes, specifically on your open tops. Right now you have a flat fee. It's like $330 for open tops. That's the cost. That's for the pull and the garbage. Most clients we work with will have a collection cost plus a per ton fee. So you get it pulled, say for $300, they pull it, you go across the scale, it's $4, you pay that times whatever the tipping fee is at the landfill. You have 6 tons in it, you pay. Right now with it lumped as a fee, you don't necessarily know if you're making money or losing money on those. So we're gonna recommend that from that standpoint. We also are going to recommend that the commercial collection rates accurately reflect the cost per collection and per cubic yard. So the number of right now, if you have, for instance, a 4 cubic yard dumpster that's picked up twice a week and a 2 cubic yard dumpster that's picked up 4 times a week, same cubic yards, but a truck has to do it 2 times versus 4, they pay the same rate. So we're getting it to capturing that. We came up with 2 scenarios, and so basically scenarios 1 and 2 are the same with we're going to recommend residential rate increases, tweak the roll-off structure I just mentioned, fix the commercial dumpster rate structure I mentioned, utilize the fee for cardboard roll-offs. You have a fee, but it's not being charged right now, so we'd recommend doing that. Again, it's a fee that's less than what it is when you're picking up garbage, so it encourages, incentivizes recycling, but it's not a free service. That's pretty common in our business. The bottom four are items that either help with revenue and or decrease costs. With those four, which I'll go through in a second, those will help, and you'll see in just a second, to modestly have a little less of a rate increase in scenario 2 than you would in scenario 1 because of those. So implementing the cardboard baler, again, I mentioned it's about 70 grand of cost savings and revenue. The dumpster recycling fee, transitioning to front load. I know the last one can be sometimes people love their garbage cans. I know this. It's
Have you been
peculiar,
tipped off
but-
that I've already complained about this?
Yeah. So this is merely a recommendation, and you folks make policy. So I'm just giving a recommendation. Operationally, sometimes 32s are a problem because they're narrower, and so you got this claw that's picking up 96s, 64s. Those smaller cans, sometimes the claws, I mean, there's a lot of banging around. Think about it, those claws get lifted 800 to 1,000 times a day. They take a beating, the calibration gets off a little bit. A 32-gallon, it's not uncommon that sometimes they just go straight in the thing goes flying up and it goes flying out, into the truck. So they can be problematic. So it's something for you to consider. I'm not going to step into it any more than that. Here are the different rate scenarios. Again, a lot of information. I'll focus on the big ones. First off, the big ones, you go, what's going up 16.9%? That's the gray, that's the roll-offs. That's because you're significantly under-recovering on the cost, and we're recommending moving to the disposal per ton. So that's why you have that big first increase. Then from there, for residential, you can see that for fiscal year 2026, we're looking at a 9% increase, then 8,765. If you look in scenario 2, which is the blue, again, remember we have some revenue offsets, you would be 8,665, just to give you an idea. And again, if you're asking why are those going up more than commercial, residential is under recovering significantly more, so we want to get those to where everybody's getting closer to their revenue recovery. So a lot of numbers. I'm just going to focus on a couple things here. So for your 2026, right now, your 96 gallon, that's where the majority of your customers are. You're at $21.20 a month. Under scenario 1, you would go to $23.11 per month. Under scenario 2, again, you have some revenue offsets, so your rate's a little less, $22.90. And then the dumpsters, you've got a little movement there on rates, but it's really nothing crazy, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that unless someone has questions. On the roll-offs, though, what we're recommending, right now you have a fee of $300 for your open tops. It's $330, and it just gets pulled, whether you have 2 tons or 6 tons of garbage. So what we're recommending going to is a $300 cost per pull, plus whatever the tonnage is.
What is 4 tons of garbage cost to dispose of?
You about $48, $41.28
Per ton?
per ton. So it'd be about $160. Yeah, and that's not uncommon. A lot of our clients, when we're doing these studies, the cost of pulls, it all comes down to efficiency. Do you own the landfill? How close it is? Scheduled versus unscheduled. So we've got these costs per pull will be anywhere from $200 to $400. It just depends on certain efficiencies. Candidly, larger cities, typically you've got more pulls where you can do it a little more efficiently. So your $300 is not unreasonable. Now, what I wanted to show you was 2030. So we have a 5-year forecast. So what we're showing, this is 5 years out with this forecast again, and we'll just focus on the 96 gallon again. For 2026, the third line, 2120, and then it's going to 2311, 2290. Again, fast forward to 2030, you would be at basically 2972 under scenario 1, or scenario 2 would be 2917. Let me check. Yeah, I'll come to that one next. Key thing I want to mention, so you're looking at rate increases are not popular, but we're looking at a forecasted out in basically 5 years, 2030, your rate being at $29. Again, I want to emphasize all the services you provide as far as garbage, recycling, the bulky collection, yard waste, the collection center, etc. And that's your rate increase. I have clients right now that are already in the $26, $30 range and getting ready to do rate increases. So we have a lot of clients now that are, it's interesting, when I was doing this about 10, 15 years ago, you know, it was going over 20 bucks for the first time was, okay, that's your trend. Well, now we're starting to see the clients go over the 30 bucks. You're not getting there for 5 years. We have clients I'll be doing rates for this year and next year that'll be going over 30. And I have others that are already over 30. So from that standpoint, your operation is in good shape.
Just curiously, what size cities are you talking about there?
They're all over the board. So I'm going to be in Huntsville, Texas, which is about 25,000, so a little smaller than you. I'm doing work in Tucson and Phoenix right now. Phoenix's rate is $38 per month for theirs. So we've got them all over the board. And I'm trying to think, I'm going to be starting Bartlesville here shortly. Waco and Denton, they're around 100 to $250,000 down in Texas, and their rates are at 28 and going over 30. So just a,
Thank you.
yeah. So under rate scenario 1, you can see as you phase it in, okay, the under recovery, $674,000 in 2025 doesn't change because we're not doing anything. Then as you phase in those increases, that under recovery, that yellow line starts to go up, and you finally, in fiscal year 2029, you hit an over recovery of $105,000, and then in 2030, $169,000. So one of the things we're doing there is balancing, trying to put some of the money back into the reserves. We don't want to drain the bank, the savings account.
Does that, I assume that's including a, some kind of annual increase in costs? That's
Yes.
not just a,
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Again, our forecast here is a 5-year forecast using inflation factors for the different items, 3 to 4%, depending on if it's salary, benefits. Capital, right now, we're continuing to use 5% a year just because that's, we think it's going to slow down, but you tell me what the future is and I'll plug it in. So we use that. But most importantly, you can see that green. You mentioned that or someone mentioned on the green, the residential, you can see how under recovering it is, but you can see by 2029, it's just a sliver. You can barely see it. It's positive, it's breaking even, and the same in 2030. And then scenario 2 is basically the same thing. So in summary, you know, your residential and commercial and roll-off rates, they haven't kept up with some of those inflation items I just showed you. So we've got to catch up. Again, I want to emphasize, though, where we're going, even in 5 years being at $29, again, I've got clients there already. So that speaks well to where you are from an operational cost standpoint. Again, residential is the biggest one that has to get an increase. We do recommend some of those operational tweaks on residential and commercial with regard to moving towards front load down the road. And then, like I said in the last item, you benchmark well versus others. With that, I'm glad to take any questions.
kind of asked mine in the middle, so.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, no, very helpful.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
All right. Nothing else on the agenda for the SUA tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn SUA. Please vote. Stillwater Utilities Authority is adjourned with a vote of 4-0. This time I'll call to order the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting for June 16th, 2025. Trustees, questions or actions on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. Takes us to general orders and to all of our survivors for the evening. I hope you got some candy, because that's all we got for you. 5A, consider the application of Tile House for small business enhancement assistance. Brady Moore, tell us more.
Yes, this is for a new business that's coming in at 102 South Main Street. They submitted an application through our TIF District Number 3, the Small Business Enhancement Assistance. This is for a project entitled Tile House, and it is a project redoing that structure or the facade improvements around 102 South Main Street. Total project cost is $32,000. So the max assistance under that program details at $15,000. They've been patient with us as we went through this review of kind of some of the legal process and improvements that we need to make to the implementation policy guide as approved earlier this evening. And so, yeah, I want to invite Kylie up to tell us about the project. And I will note that the TIF committee approved this and recommended it for your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got an extra, I'll share. Yeah.
We're good.
Oh.
All right.
City attorney doesn't need one.
Yes, well, hello, my name is Kylie, and I have my husband here with me. His name is Dalton. And actually 10 years ago, I was a student here at Oklahoma State, and at that same time, unbeknownst to me, he was graduating with his engineering degree from here. And we met 2 years ago where I learned that he was a home builder and he remodels, and I do interior design. So we blended our lives together and mingled our businesses, and that brings us to Tile House. So in my dealings with getting to know his business and his customers, I found a big gap that I notice in the construction industry. And it's in sort of an interior design, like selection space gap. And so Tile House is there to fill that gap. And what it is it is a interior design selection center, and it is also a specialty selection store. So to some people, like we've had actual residents here in Stillwater that we're working with, they have said our storefront and what it's proposed to be is actually like Pinterest in real life for them. They actually get to come. So differentiating it from a residential store that you would go and shop and pick out tile and flooring and all that stuff, we actually have an inclusive interior design studio where you're actually able to see things on a television. You're actually able to plug and play elements, colors, paint, whatever you can think of. And then we're also bringing in some specialty items like completely customized tile that you can interchange anything about it, and things like that. So when we live in Oklahoma City currently, and when I was looking for a place to open Tile House, Stillwater was first of mind, actually. And it's because of the unique opportunity you guys have here for what we do in construction, for building residential homes and even commercial buildings, because I do dealings with commercial contractors now to get them, especially their facade elements and some interior elements as well. So that brought me to 102 Main Street. There is, as you guys know, not very much commercial property available to lease. So I had to deal with what we have, and that building needs tremendous improvements, especially to the exterior. We have already committed to the interior, where we have basically gutted it, and we are about to finish our inspection with the city to put our sheetrock back up and make it all beautiful inside. So in the exterior, we would like to do something along the lines as what you'll see there. That's kind of the best I could get our software to draw, but really and truly, we're gonna take some of the siding off the front. It's very old. We'd like to replace all of it. We'll see how it goes, but we're gonna for sure try to replace the front of it, whether it be with like a cedar or a board and batten, and then refinish around the windows, and the deck is essentially rotted. We need to redo all the railings, and then there is not very good signage there at all, actually. There is one spot to put a sign, but a tree is covering it for the most part. So we will have to be investing in signage. We'll fix up around the border of the house. It's ugly, to say the least. So we're gonna go in with some stone and put that on the bottom and just make it more appealing and to fit the improvements that you guys are already making to Main Street. So, is there any questions I can answer?
I think it's so exciting. I love these projects. It's so fun to see you all dream, and then for us to get to be a part of it through these TIF dollars to allow for these improvements at the exterior can make such a difference. This is a part of Main Street that really needs your inspiration. My hope would be that this spurs others in that area to invest and start reinvesting in that part of Main Street. So, so thank you. We're excited you're here.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, it's exactly what this is intended to help do, and we're excited to see what you're able to do with the facility.
Awesome. Thank you. All good?
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kylie.
So what's the recommendation for us?
Motion is to approve the application for small business enhancement for Tile House at 102 South Main Street.
Trustees?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this application. Please vote. It's approved with a vote of 5-0. Can't wait to see it. Item B is consider the application of Apex Title for a small business enhancement assistance. Tell us more, Brady.
Yes, this is for the remodel downtown. It's near Block 34. It's at 114 West 8th Street. It's a building that is being purchased to put in an Apex Title. Paul Cooper is here. He's the contractor. And Paul apologized that you had to sit through the meeting. I warned you that it was going to be a long meeting, and I'm sure he's a big Thunder fan, but he's here to tell you about the project. He came to talk to the TIF committee. Again, this is an exciting way that we get to partner with a new business coming to town that has chains all over the state. And so the total project cost for just the exterior improvements, which are pretty extensive on this building as well, is $30,370. And so it meets that total amount of assistance requested at $15,000. So, Paul, please tell us about the project.
Hi, thanks for having me this evening. About 4 years ago, my daughter came here to go to school and kind of fell in love with the town. And I was telling my friend who owns the Apex Title and Closing, he has about 23 of them. I said, you really need to consider Stillwater, because one of the things that I've noticed over the past 4 years and seeing people around the Tulsa area, that's where the main office is there are so many alumni that come here, love it, but then leave. And so he's like, I think we have an opportunity here to keep the people in Stillwater and to keep the revenue in Stillwater and so on and so forth. So we're going to be gutting out the interior, and on the exterior, we couldn't do this without you guys, obviously, but we're going to completely rip the front off and run glass about 9.5 feet tall across the entire front, modernize it with some plaster, Venetian plaster, then some canopies over the top as well, some exterior lighting, and just really excited to be a part of this project and close to that Block 32 as well.
Yeah, you guys are going to have a great view from there. through all that
Absolutely.
glass.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great.
About how many square feet's in this?
2,500.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Nope, I would say the same thing. We're
Yeah.
just excited to have you all here and investing in our community. And
excited.
Grateful.
Thank you.
I think this was a dispensary for a while.
Yes.
Before this.
Yep.
I'm sure that'll be
Red Cross.
fun.
Yes.
So
We like repurposing dispensaries.
there,
Yes.
there may be some aromatic issues you have to deal with.
Right.
Yeah, great to have you downtown Stillwater. Really
Thank you.
appreciate the investment you and your
Yes.
team are making, and yeah, excited to see what this looks like. It'll
Really
be a
looking forward to it.
Good
Glad to be
addition.
part of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Trustees. Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Moore, what's
the motion would be to approve the application of Apex Title for small business enhancement assistance in amount of $15,000 for the exterior improvements at 114 West 8th Street.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the application. Please vote. It's approved with a vote of 5-0. Thank you guys both so much for the work you're doing in Stillwater. We appreciate your investments here and looking forward to seeing your improvements. Trustees, anything further?
I actually have an announcement.
Nope, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just want to say Carrie's in the room and Rebecca and Elaine's not in here, but I just want to say, I just want to share our gratefulness and appreciation for the incredible work they did last week.
Yes.
For the Select OK. We had some big name selectors in town, got to meet them, got to have some state meetings, and the schedule that the chamber put on for hosting that event here in Stillwater is incredible. It was first rate, all the activities. I know Dawn and staff helped on some of the stuff too, and it just really put off a really good front for Stillwater. So hats off to you all.
That's really awesome. I unfortunately wasn't here last week, and I hated to have missed it because it is a huge boost for the community just to have those folks who are looking for places, who are thinking about, who are helping people look for places to locate their businesses, to see what's going on in Stillwater right now and to get them all here is really exciting. So appreciate that work and the work from the city team and everybody. So.
All right.
What else? That it? Trustees, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
With motion and a second to adjourn, SEDA, please vote. The vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Economic Development Authority is now adjourned, and that concludes our meetings for the evening.